is.
I mean, this one's on, I can see the camera.
This one's not on.
So Barbara, Robin, just why don't you try and talk one more time? All right, that works, great. All right, perfect. All right, so tonight's agenda, usually reserve fund transfers, but we have none. We're gonna go through at least 10 town meeting warrant articles here. Meeting minutes, new business, old business, public access, and adjournment. So the first one of the articles we're dealing with tonight is gonna be the town budget, because in the town budget is the educational section, and we have the superintendent, and I want to say the finance director, but I know that's not the correct title,
Director of Business and Finance, pretty close.
to attend and talk to their budget. So Larry, I'll let you, as liaison, have any opening remarks and introduce me.
Thank you. Ladies, if you'd please step forward.
Absolutely.
Do you each know all of the members of the Finance Committee? There are some new-ish faces.
There are new-ish.
Well, Ken, would you start and give your name and go down the line,
I
please?
think I know most.
Ken Talentino.
Hi, Ken.
How you doing?
Mike Hager.
Mike,
That's
we know
Kevin
Kevin,
Smith, Jim
we know
Waddick.
Jim.
Jim Waddick.
We're up to you, Chris.
Mr. Rose.
MC Porter.
Larry Morris. Thank you for setting aside time.
Absolutely.
Happy that you are our guests tonight. A few background words, and then I'll ask you to take the floor. As a reminder, the Burgess School Committee, actually the Sturbridge School Committee at Burgess, and the Tantascwa School Committee each has its own finance committee. They call them budget subcommittees. And they have more practice, and frankly, they do better than this finance committee because they live all year long with the numbers. We come in and do our best. It's our responsibility. But compared to the budget subcommittees, this finance committee is doing its best, frankly, as tourists. And I think we must recognize that in shaping our observations and comments, although each of us is certainly capable of making such remarks as one may wish. The Tantascwa Regional District is, as a reminder, the first in the Commonwealth. It was established on January 15th, 1952. It is the model for the state for all three kinds of regional districts, and there are 81 other regional districts in the Commonwealth, and they all, if you look at them, at their anatomy with X-ray eyes, you're looking at Tantascwa. It is the original. On behalf of the Finance Committee as liaison, the work of the Finance Committee this year began on January 13th and continued on the 24th of January and then February 10th. And I want to note that the budget subcommittees and these two educational executives could not be more forthcoming and welcoming. In a public hearing properly, we sit in the audience. At those three meetings and the comparable meetings over the years, representing this finance committee, I sat at the table with them and raised my hand and get recognized and say what I had to say. They are very, very open and welcoming. Now, I'm going to go through two lists. One is what was talked about, and then why. The other list, what was not discussed, and why. Here is what was discussed in those three meetings. State aid, transportation costs, teacher's contract, but not the specifics therein. The vocational technical program, almost half the student body at the high school is enrolled, as well as in academics, in the vocational technical program. Insurances, school choice and the use of funds therefrom. Technology instruction and IT for the organization. Rural aid from the state, capital planning, utilities, staffing patterns with respect, for example, only to such as vacancies, and what will be potentially, at least at that time, the delta. Someone is retiring after 30 years, and someone qualified is coming in with a master's degree, but not at that compensation level. That kind of conversation, not who's going to teach geometry. Availability of grants, pending legislation, forecast of change in student census, bulk buys, group purchases, school discounts, warranties. All of that was discussed. Let me take a very short sidestep to mention that Burgess possesses 99.9% market share. The junior high, 99% market share. The senior high, 99% market share. On a different side, brief step, there is something in this state called a foundation budget. Every district receives from the state an exact amount of money that must be spent. Springfield gets its, Provincetown gets its, Williamstown gets its, Sturbridge gets its, Wales gets its, and so forth. It's called the foundation budget. It is distinct and unique per district, or simply to a town. That figure this year, for the coming year, is not debatable. Ladies and gentlemen, the figure is $25,958,028. $25,958,028. That's it. The budget proposal is $30,429,531. 30,429,531. The delta is $4,471,503. Now that is discussable. You fall below the foundation budget and pretend that you're not being noticed, and you do some other unwise things, and you wind up like Southbridge. Right now, Southbridge is in its 8th consecutive year in state receivership. A receiver-superintendent comes out and runs the place. There is no local superintendent. And the principals and everybody else is going around their business. The school committee does have one job, and that is to conduct the Pledge of Allegiance, literally. That's it. Southbridge Town Council hasn't got a voice. Town manager hasn't got a voice. That is a figure that we receive as a community. Now, here's the why for that list: insurances, utilities, group purchases. Think of matching bookends. One is the quality of education to prepare students for responsible adulthood and citizenship and to earn a living. That's one. The match to that is extreme I capitalize, boldface, underline, and italicize. Extreme. Endless, deep concern that I witnessed when it comes to taxpayer impact. Now that, of course, means you got bookends, everything fits in between. Well, the next question is obviously, what's the value? That brings the question, in whose eyes? Therein lies the measurement. Just like 1 minute after 9 on the first day in business school. There it is. Well, we're lucky. We find out at the annual town meeting if there's high value or not. The budget passes, got value. If it doesn't have value, or at least enough. That is the test. Now, I said 2 lists. Here's the other one, and why. The other one being the topics not discussed. Organizational policy that begins and ends with the elected school committee for both Union 61 Burgess and Tantascwa. Educational philosophy, same. Audit decisions, well, it's certainly not for the finance committee here to engage in audit decisions. It has no capability of an accounting firm with forensic and fraud auditing talent. Can't do it. Integrity of operations, that didn't come up because that begins and ends with the school committee, and this is not a law enforcement agency in any event, right here. Truancy rate, school committee. Graduation rate, school committee. Student health, school committee. Student safety, school committee. Peer rankings, school committee. Although peer rankings are done with ersatz mathematics. Advice, asked for or not asked for. The finance committee is not a consulting firm. Marketing, advertising, public relations. Tell you what, you got 3 kids in your family, 2 of them, they take intro to algebra. For the 3rd kid, they'll get geometry for free. What do you say? No. This is not an agency. Plus or minus 6 sigma for defects per million pieces produced. Well, the private sector perspective of the public sector is that the public sector is a foreign country. We do things differently here. So there are the matching bookends: responsible adulthood, citizenship, earning a living, and extreme concern for taxpayer enterprise. And there's the delta, 471,503. With the chair's permission, ladies, you have the floor.
I just need a clarifying point on your remarks. You said there are 99.9% captive audience. Are you trying to say that...
Market share,
Well, market, yeah.
not a captive audience.
Well, I guess where I'm trying to go is, are you trying to say that 99.9% of eligible school-age kids go to their either Tantascwa or...
Yeah.
And then the little bit extra goes to private schools or the other things?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that's where you were going.
That's what it is.
Okay,
Please.
sorry.
Thank you. I don't know where we go after intros like that from Larry. Each year, I don't know where to go. I will clarify.
Should bring Larry with you to every other?
You are absolutely right. On the road, all 5 towns.
Well, how you do go on.
Might be inviting you. So thank you again for having us and for all your support. I will clarify and then add to a little bit on Larry, the budget and net school spending figures that he quoted are actually Tantasqua. So Tantasqua's net school non-negotiable must spend is $25 million this year. The total budget is 30, but what the state will see it as is 28 million, because there's $1.5 million that is other, it's like all the additional revenues that we can throw at it before going out to town. So technically, the state will see the towns as contributing just under 10% over the minimum required contribution, which is a pretty low number. The state average for net school spending over foundation is 25%. That's up. It's been 20% for a number of years. It's creeping up, which leaves us, of course, advocating, saying then something's wrong with that foundation budget. And that is a conversation every year at the legislative level, and trying to get that a little more correct and therefore get more Chapter 70, because that's what's happening this year for Tantasqua as well as Sturbridge. They're both, all of my districts are in that hold harmless mode where we're not getting additional Chapter 70 due to enrollment. They haven't fixed the formula, so we're not getting it because the formula has been adjusted. You're getting minimum aid, which is right now $75 per student, which is pretty much nothing. I think that is about $100,000 at the Tantasqua level, and I don't have the number offhand here, but $75 times about 850 students doesn't come close to cover. So we're fully aware that we're looking at a year that we are asking the taxpayers to fund almost everything additional that we need for the budget to continue with the services that we're doing. So that is difficult. That is a increasing situation across the state. My conversations with legislators, they get it. There are more and more very good, stable financial communities that are at their max, are having conversations about Proposition 2.5, and they're not passing. And the only hope I have is that legislators seem to be hearing that the state funds between Chapter 70 and what they send for local aid for unclassified UGG is nothing. I mean, it's such a small number. What's coming from the state to our local communities just is not helping at all. So we understand the burden is on the taxpayers. I think you absolutely get a great bang for your buck being part of a regional school district. And again, if we're able to provide the services that we are at just 10% over the foundation or the minimum required contribution, we feel pretty proud of that and think we're getting a lot of good things done. It doesn't make it easy when we every year still look at this year. The budget is an increase of 3.6%, and we chop that up into 5 pieces, and those pieces are tough to swallow. The biggest conversation that we've had, so we did, for those of you at public hearing, I'm sorry to repeat myself, but some of you weren't, so I'm going to repeat myself. We won't go through the entire full presentation, but we think the key points are the budget is looking for level services. There are the only increases in the budget from this year as far as staffing is 1 classroom assistant, special ed assistant that we actually reduced from the current year budget, hoping we could get by. And the student needs, students with IEPs and special needs, it makes it impossible. So we are looking to put that back in. And the other, I was really happy to actually get a little picture of a posting. The only other additional thing we're looking at the Tantasqua end is to add a course. We do not need the staff for it, but it's a course to step up to, we currently have the firefighter course that Sturbridge firefighters are very involved in partnering and teaching. Next year, we're going to add an EMT course. We can do that with just the supplies and the texts because we have staff, we have volunteer from all 5 of our towns, I believe, firefighters, but we also have a certified EMT on staff that we're just going to redeploy for 1 block a day and help put that position in, or that course in. which is, I'm really excited about, and I'm hoping that you all realize you have a Sturbridge firefighter that just graduated from the academy. That was one of our first firefighting, right, Wesley Peterson,
Yeah.
just, I think, in the last week, graduated, and I noticed the fire department posted, and that is a Tantascwa grown student that went through that program. So we're really excited. We're doing a few different things. That kind of goes along with, as Larry did refer to, I spoke to you all last year and probably the year before about that shift of the Chapter 74, the technical school programs, that we are now pretty much almost exactly 50%. So I think when I started many years ago, there was probably 25% of the students, between 25 and 30% of the students were in the technical vocational school, and the others in the non-technical. Some people try to call it technical versus academic. I say it's all academic. So technical versus non-technical is how I refer to those two schools in one building. We mentioned a year or two ago, and our biggest issue at Tantascwa this year is what's awesome for our 5-member towns who have increasing students attending technical programs continues to mean we cannot take any students outside of our 5-member towns, which was a revenue source. So this is another year that we need to decrease $250,000 in revenue because we don't have the space, and all for good things for our kids, but it does leave us with a revenue challenge. That's statewide. If you've seen the statewide push and need and want is for more technical program seats. DESE is committed to create more seats. There are a number of standalone technical schools that are getting expansions and adding programs to try and add more seats because the waiting line is enormous from the average community. We're in this weird, if you lived in Southbridge or Charlton or Dudley, they're a member of Bay Path. A little further west is Pathfinder. They have 12 to 13 community members. Any given year, any student from those communities that want to apply can, but there's only a certain number of seats per town. I would bet no more than 20% of the students who apply to go to their tech school get in. We often then after get some applications because they didn't make it, because they only have limited seats. Now, that's been a situation forever for all tech schools, that only a certain percentage of those in their town who would like to go to a technical school make it in. We've got 100% of those that want to go that made it this year. Beginning of this year was the first time ever we had a teeny waiting list. We had the number of seats that we had 4 more 8th graders in our 5-member towns that wanted to get into the tech school. Folks were outraged that we might have a waiting list, and it doesn't feel good, but I'm like, folks in our district don't realize how fortunate that our communities have been it's been a no-brainer for years, for decades. You want to do a tech school, you pick a program there and you're in. Sometimes the program they choose might be full and they might need to lottery or based on the year 1 performance decide whether they can get into their first choice or their second, but they could get into a program.
What is a tech? What is a tech? What are so many classes, or what is a tech? What is it like?
So our technical programs are electrical, health careers, used to be called allied health, carpentry, culinary arts, CAD, computer design. There are 9, who am I missing? Information technology. Machine shop, and the front end, culinary, the front end, hospitality. So We've got 9 programs.
From the trend, the trend now seems to be a lot of people saying, why are you going to college for, with all this stuff, even the
Exactly.
why not do that? We need electricians, we need this, we need
Yep.
that, and.
Exactly.
So I would imagine the trend would be more
It
people
is.
going in there.
It's what's happening statewide and national-wise there, and they are very good, respectable jobs. There's a number of those programs that there's still a college path. You do the CAD, or the information technology, even culinary arts, lots of those students do continue and go on to college, or there's an advanced trade school. But we put them in a place that many of them are eligible to get jobs in their trades as soon as they graduate. It's absolutely, it's all about career paths. So we do have that shift that's continued to happen almost to the point of max. I don't see, at least not at my recommendation, us trying to increase the technical programs or slots in that one building at the risk of decreasing the non-technical. First of all, it's expensive every time you add a classroom to serve your carpentry or your electrical students, or especially the machine shops. Those are very expensive programs, but we don't have the space in that building to add more without taking away from some of the programs that we're doing that are non-technical. So I think we're right at that place. Do I think we may continue to get a little more applicants than we have space for? I think it's possible over the next couple of years. But we're getting darn close this year and last year. Every student who wanted to from our 5 towns to be in a technical Chapter 74 program is in it.
You're getting a lot of kids out on co-op?
Yes, tons. And the work done, the work those kids do, you see it all over the community. You see our carpentry students are always working with town halls or OSV or at the actual schools doing work. The electrical students do a ton of electrical work for our schools, saving us money, and for the town halls. Your health careers folks are doing co-ops at Harrington.
Yeah, we have a library project we could use you with.
Yep, yep, always ask. So, but, long story long, that created a continued decrease in revenue. So when we started looking at what we thought was a reasonable 3.5% budget increase, you take the loss of revenues to that minimum state aid, and then the loss of revenue put us first pass in a place of having the assessments to the town being upwards close to 9%. And I know enough about the finances of all 5 of our towns and what their ability to pay is, and some of you have heard it before, I'll say it again. I will fight for my schools if I know the funds are there, but towns might not want to give it. The funds aren't there. I'm not going to go in and fight for something that I know isn't there. So when I looked at where those initial assessments were, knowing what each of the 5 towns were not getting for state aid, knowing where each of them are as far as their tax levy and what their ability is for the taxes, I was not going to get 4 out of 5, given that. I knew, and I was not. And I did not believe that we would get Proposition 2.5 override supports in the communities. So we looked at what our options were and started looking at what we would reduce. Then we go to the rural aid story. So rural aid, I've talked about for a few years. I have said for a number of years, rural aid has been in existence for 6 or 7 years. It's been a line in the state budget. It's been an ongoing conversation about how important it is to try and help the rural communities that are declining and declining. Now, Sturbridge is on the edge, the very edge of rural. My other 4 communities are more rural and qualify for sure. But even them, I say, you don't really know rural until you go further out west. And that really is a very heavy conversation about what to do when students they still deserve to be educated, but they are in such this small populated area. So the state has a commitment to rural aid. They haven't been giving as much rural aid as a state-approved commission study says they should be, because you can't get blood from a stone. And as I've said again, and I'll keep saying, unless there is a printing press in the back room at the State House, I completely understand our legislators needing to figure out where to put the money. So I think folks don't disagree that rural aid needs to exist. They don't disagree that it should be funded at a higher level, a much higher level. My issue has been for many, many years, you don't tell me until June 30th if the line called rural aid lives, because the governor puts it in, the House and the Senate jockey over. They have not jockeyed over whether to put anything in at all. They've jockeyed over the amount. So you don't know until June what the amount is. And then the eligibility for rural aid is a complex calculation, but it's based on the number of students, not residents, per square mile. And there's a threshold of 35, I think has been the number before. Well, they don't do those calculations and tell us until November, October or November. Any of my communities that are going to get rural aid or my school districts don't know until October or November. So for years now, I have been saying, and even at Tantascwa has been getting rural aid. They haven't been making it part of their operating budget because I don't know for sure if it's not part of the budget process. They've been using it for capital items and emergency unanticipated expenditures. When I saw what we were going to have to reduce to get assessments down to a place that I thought I could get my towns to fund, it was close to $500,000, seven plus professional staff. So I got on the phone with, and I don't want to put him on the spot, but I think he'd be okay. I certainly called Representative Smola and asked, really, I didn't want, our representatives know, our legislators know, Senator Fatman also knows that I very much believe rural aid needs to be codified as part of the Chapter 70 formula so that we know in January what those base calculations would look like and who would be eligible for what. Until that happens, it makes it really hard to use it for what we believe it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be to help keep the rural schools going. I did ask Todd if there was any conversation at all in any of his comings and goings of that rural aid going away. And he said, nope. If I was hearing that, he'd like to know where from. And I said, that's all I needed to hear. You know you know what I'm going to say. I need to hear about it in January. I need you guys to codify it. Go do what you're going to do. That's going to take a while, but they've heard that song before. What I needed to hear for Tantascwa was that there is no talk of rural aid going away, which to me put me in a place of saying, I'm going to have a hard time reducing staff in May and June because I don't know the final number, when for the past 6 years I have been getting a number. And this year that number was just over $500,000. So I am doing what I said I never want to do and putting us a little bit of a cliff. But I feel confident that it's not really as much of a cliff as we all felt it was the first few years, because it is talked about enough that I think it's here to stay. So what we did on the Tantascwa end is use that rural aid as a revenue source. So we we added $500,000 of revenue, which covered my Chapter 74 reduction of $250,000 and then a bit further to get to the assessments that we're at. So we're making it very clear. We have a list of what reductions we'll have to make if either rural aid doesn't come through, at least at the level it is this year, or if 2 out of 5 of my towns don't support the assessments we're at. So we kind of got that list ready. We know we're going to need to cut if we have to go any deeper, but I just couldn't hand out pink slips and lay off people, knowing for the last 6 years I've found out in October that I am getting the rural aid, or the amount I get. June 30th, we know, I can guess by the amount that ends up in the budget, I can ballpark what we will get. But you just don't get those numbers for sure until October, November, and then it's given as a grant. They consider it a grant right now. I need it to not be a grant, but that is the kind of long story of what's happening at the Tantascwa end to try and sustain all of the programs we've got going on. No increases in staff short of putting back that one reduced position, classroom assistant, and continuing with the programs that we have right now.
And it sounded like from Larry's comments, you were in negotiations with one of the unions?
We're in negotiations at Sturbridge. So everything in Tantascwa is hard, etched in stone. We have no Tantascwa negotiations going on this year. Burgess teachers are negotiating as we speak. We'll get to the Burgess story in a minute.
Okay.
Anything else on Tantascwa? Any questions? It's
I'll
always
ask a
little-
general one, foundation budgets, whether it's Tantascwa or Burgess. What are the factors that drive that? When you say, we're 10% over, but many communities are 25% over, it kind of suggests that other communities are spending more per student for their, education. I'm wondering if it's a case where we're spending the same, maybe Sturbridge is spending more per student than others are, but the foundational budget calculation drives a higher number for us than it does for the other
Yeah,
communities.
when you look at the state average, there's so much to look at, because the amount over foundation budget is gonna vary, it's gonna vary by community. Again, Tantascwa is only 7 through 12. It doesn't take into account, a lot, other school districts are K through 12, so when they're over foundation at a 20%, they're across K through 12. Tantascwa happens to have we're pretty tight as far as economies of scale we're able to really capitalize on. Now, and again, when you look at any per pupil expenditure, if you look at a standalone tech school, their per pupil expenditure is much higher than Tantascwa's is, because it blends the two. A tech school is always higher than a non-tech school. A secondary school is always higher than an elementary school. As you get up there, and technology is a bigger deal, and a lot of the other things in the specialized classes. So it's really this balance, that secondary is usually a bit higher. I think a lot of what we're doing, we're keeping things pretty tight. You do have school choice, that we still have that line at the door, and we still, every year, carefully decide how many slots we can let in. As our residential town enrollment decreases, we have had some increase in school choice and increase the ability to fund our capital items. None of the capital is in there, so that also keeps it down. The fact that school choice funds most of your capital it's not in the budget. In most communities, any purchase of new equipment or fixed assets is part of their budget. It's not part of Tantascwa's operating budget, because we fund it offline with school choice funds. So that keeps that over net school spending low too.
What's your E&D budget then?
So E&D, we put towards the budget to lower your assessment, and the E&D, Sturbridge, Tantascwa's E&D is right at just under the 5% max threshold. But we put 400,000 of E&D towards next year's budget. We've been able to do that for the last few years, to say, yeah, E&D equals free cash. We've been putting it toward the budget to lower your assessments.
I think the stat I saw was that the towns in Mass education budget as a percentage of total budget is about anywhere between 50 and 60%, could be even higher.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, we're on the low side, so is that good or bad? I look at results, okay,
Yeah.
so and then I look at going out further, and you fall actually below 50 to 49, so
Yeah.
education is extremely important. If you look at surveys in this town, outside of the trails and open space, it's like number 2, but
Yep.
everything else is the most important for
Your
everything.
Burgess, to the flip side, Burgess is about 30% over net school spending, so they're a little bit higher than the state average, the Burgess
We're a
budget.
little bit lower because we share, is that why we're below percent-wise, or?
For the region, yes, and because we've got other resources that we can put towards it, such as the school choice desire, and as long as we can still do that, we'll do that. I don't see, that line is not decreasing. We have a waiting list each year at the 7th grade level, once they're in their state.
The teacher per student ratio versus other towns, we're close to it? as far as
Yeah,
that?
we're close. Here, and I do know, and last year, Ken, you were quoting some of the numbers, and I have to say, I was like, geez, we are not that low. We're good at Tantasco, but we're not that good.
Intentional, yeah, it's
It
definitely.
looks really like it's a very, very low teacher-student ratio because there's another school, which is the tech school. And there is absolutely a problem on the state reporting end with those two schools in one building, because every teacher, every non-shop teacher, math, social studies, science, teaches both schools. So we're sitting here trying to put them in one pot or another just for state reporting. It doesn't wash out right in the data. So it makes it look like, some of them were outrageous. They were like less than 10 to 1 student-to-teacher ratio. We don't have that, even on the shops.
No, but Tantascwa results are good.
They are.
They're
Yep.
good results.
Yep,
I do have another one, just, so the building's about 25 years old now.
yeah.
Yeah. So how is the envelope holding up? Are we looking at major?
It's funny you use envelope. My facilities guys are gonna love you, because they started a year or two putting in the capital plan literally a line called building envelope, and they keep throwing that one at me, and I just makes, it really is, the envelope is in good shape, but they had a study last year that did a complete walkthrough of the various different concrete, roof, et cetera. I thought 2 or 3 years ago, I had a massive roof on the capital plan way out for another 5 or 6 years from now. We've had a review done of the roof, and we're told it's actually in pretty good shape. We need to keep up with, anytime something comes up and there's any little pinhole or flashing, we get on it immediately. School Choice has allowed us to do that. We've been very fortunate to be able to keep up. The envelope is in good shape, and they've got a list of things that they want to get to, some cement issues, or they've got a list, and the capital plan has envelope for the next few years to address, and then as it comes up, they let me know which one. But it's in good shape, and the junior high is tight, too.
That's good.
Yep.
That's even over.
Junior high is one of those, they don't make them like they used to. They're very tight, they're not spread out, it is a tight, and we've done a lot of work both inside and outside, and it's holding quite well. Yep. Burgess, on the Burgess side, they are higher than the, as far as your expenditures over net school spending, I don't think they're outrageously high. I think they're just a bit over what the state average is. Burgess, we're looking to continue all the programs we're doing. We're not looking to add staff at all. We have a few retirements that help us keep the budget down. The conversation at Burgess is the bus. From a transportation point of view, we had a spike this year and a little bit of a spike next year, separate from the actual bus, because that is a contract that is up again next year, but the contract that we settled last year had a pretty significant increase for bus driver rates. And again, this is not a surprise to anyone. The increase of transportation and drivers across the country is huge. We had a horrible first half of the year last year, being completely understaffed and not able to get drivers. We finally got a full complement of drivers this whole year. We've had all the runs going that we want to run, that we need to run, and have a stable staff, but we're not the only one. I think the whole transportation industry really took a bad hit at post-COVID. And we've probably talked about it before, but I think the market lost a lot of drivers during the COVID years. A lot of them are retired, older folks. So there was this complete change, and I only felt better when I talked to my peers who were having the same transportation problems, or the other 4 towns contract out, and even the outside contractor was having terrible problems getting staffing. And then the driver rates have gone significantly higher. So that has been driving a bit of our transportation costs for the last couple of years. But that aside, without the bus, apples to apples budget, Burgess, I think, is at a 2%. Once we pulled the bus out, that we pulled out last year, We were at I think, was it 3.5 to start with the bus?
314.
Yeah, so we were 3.1% with the $140,000 bus put back in the budget. So I was feeling pretty good, because when I pull that bus out, it's really a 2% increase to continue the services that we're doing, a little bit of retirement to help keep down the costs. And then comes the conversation on how Sturbridge is going to balance their budget and where that bus belongs, because we do need to keep getting the 2 buses a year to keep running your transportation in-house, which is absolutely financially the answer for Sturbridge. And I look, every 3 years when we get a new bid from the outside vendor, I compare that to the Sturbridge costs, and it's definitely cheaper to be doing in-house.
And when you do that, do you include not only the driver costs and the bus costs, but the
All the insurance costs, all the.
insurance costs,
you bet,
retirement, everything else
You bet.
that's
I
in
get
our
all the
general
numbers from
budget?
Barbara, say what's it costing for this, what's the retirement contribution, liability insurance. So I look at all of that, if I'm gonna be completely honest, because I would love to not be in the bus business. But it's the right thing for the town, so we continue to do that. But right now, officially, the school committee voted to pull out the bus and submit the article, because I was hearing that was the best thing to get through the operating budget from your finance director and town administrator. I don't have a problem doing that. I'm confident. Last year, we were going that route, and at the 11th hour, we had remaining grant monies to purchase the bus. So I'm just going to say, we're back where we were last year. We'll pull it out. We'll put the article in. I have nothing in my back pocket that's going to show up last minute, so we absolutely will need that article funded. And then I understand, we'll be back talking about what we do next year, because that 1 a year on the Burgess end, plus 1 a year on the Tantascwa end, is what's needed to keep your fleet going, where your buses are about 9 years old. We're cycling them through 9 years.
Questions?
All right, good. If you have.
So so you always give us the enrollment data
Yep.
here.
Yep.
So that school in the past is, forget that 1 year.
We're on
there.
Burgess, right?
High
Yep.
800s, now we're about 804, just
Yep.
about 800.
Yep.
It says, well, how come you can't lose a position to 2? It seems year after year, we lose some folks, but we can't lose a staff because it happens across the board
Right.
versus anything. But if I look at the school data in the annual report here, it shows you 6th grade class has got 134 students in it,
The current year,
current year.
moving up to the junior high.
Whatever data
Yep.
is in the annual
Yep.
report, so I
Yep.
assume it's as of October.
Well, if that was last year's annual report, they're probably already at the high school.
2025, yeah, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
So next year they'll move on. The 5th grade class coming behind them is 108. That's roughly 25.
108?
108.
That seems low. I can give you the numbers anticipated for next year, based on
So
current
that says
enrollment.
to me, there's a big slug leaving and whatever, and if I kind of look at, well, we're going to take the 6th grade teacher, and, because there's less in there, and we got more coming in, your kindergarten class is 84, your 1st grade is 86, so it looks like the incoming class is low as well. So it just suggests to me that it seems like there's an opportunity somewhere there, if
So-
those numbers are reasonably correct.
Our enrollment, yes, we're 50 students down. There are 42 classrooms without pre-K. So kindergarten through 6, 7 grades, 6 classes a grade, 42 classes, 50 kids divided over all of those classes. They're down maybe
But they're all
one.
across the class versus a
Right.
big slug in one
We've just
class.
never been fortunate enough to have 10 of those 50 be from one grade.
So you got 7 by 6 is 42, 800 students, so about 20 per class.
I can tell you what next year's looks like.
And interestingly, that's also a lot smaller than the estimations we were done when we were proposing the new Burgess.
When they were building, yeah, and
I mean, we
again,
were supposed to be, what is that school, 1,200, 1,400 students maxed out for?
I
And
don't
when
think I don't know that it's 12. I feel like it was closer to 1 million. I mean, I'm sorry, so, right, the 1,000, but also what's happened since that is the number of specialized programs have been taking classroom spaces, and that goes to the increasing special ed issues, needs, population. Again, we keep those programs in-house, saves us a lot of money, and it's what's best for the kids. But when the building was designed, there's absolutely 3 to 4 classrooms that were not thought to be needed for these specialized programs. They were regular classrooms. So yes, we never met that capacity, but other things happen that is taking up the space. The average next year, based on current kids in the building, you've got 115 sixth graders, 120 fifth graders. So the 120 being 20 per, on average, we've been looking at 20 per grade, per class, rather. Usually, especially at the 4th, 5th, 6th grade level, 20 is a nice number. We've had as high as 22, 23. We've had kids bubbling up and had 22 and 23. The lower end, I like an 18. Most of them are 19. We do have right now the anticipated grade 2 is 90, which would be 15. So that's low. But we don't, say that again?
We have inclusion across all grades.
Yes. Aside from those sub-separate, some of those are inclusion. Yep.
At that 20, you don't want to go much above
Yeah.
that because
Yeah, yeah. I look at it every year. Probably 10 years ago, there was a bubble. There was a really large class that had 7. And as it rolled up, when that class left graduated from 6th grade, we absolutely reduced and said, we don't need that position, and we let that go. That was a number of years ago that large class bubbled up. I don't see any of these average class sizes being to a place that we can reduce yet. I don't know what will happen over the next couple of years.
Well, I can mention to you that right now in Massachusetts, there are 890,622 public school students. That figure is lower than the prior year by 14,685. And that is minimally students going from a public school to a private school. It is rather the decline in the statewide total population. There being no Great Wall of China built around this area, no wonder the number goes down.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely statewide. I haven't felt the Sturbridge impact to the point of, to be as big as the statewide decrease yet. I'm not saying that's not going to happen. And Sturbridge was late. It's only this year, last year, that we started seeing that declining enrollment. The other 4 towns have been seeing it and feeling it for a while. But this year, across the state, the difference was so significant that October 1 is our magic date. We report all of that's what your Chapter 70 is based on, no matter what happens afterwards, which I hate the move-ins afterwards. But after that October 1 reporting data that we sent to the state, a month later, superintendents all got an email saying, please look closely at your data again, because there was a statewide reduction of, it was a significant percent for statewide, I think it was 4% across the state of students, which was alarming to the powers that be, enough that they asked us to recheck our data. So there's definitely a statewide
Globe recently,
decrease.
Boston is considering closing
Yeah.
a number of schools
Yeah.
for lack of enrollment.
Yep, yep. So it is decreasing. So a couple of years from now, we'll see. The lower 2 grades have lower enrollment if we don't have any movement. It's hard to tell for sure what's going to happen with first grade to predict, because often we don't get a lot of students, a handful of students go elsewhere for kindergarten. So we don't know for sure till we start each year what that first grade class is going to be. So we usually get a few more than just what we had for kindergarten. So it's tough to say for sure, but second grade right now looks low. Now, then we'll have conversations. 15 is nice for the lower ends. Is 18 okay, which is what would have to be if we reduced? it's getting a little higher, especially for those first few years.
The education is extremely important to attract people in, too.
Yep.
Like I mentioned probably a few times, and I've relocated many times, if I went into a town and the education system wasn't to where I would like it, I would tell,
That's not what you
just
wanna
keep
do.
driving.
Yep.
Just keep driving. So last year you had a lot of initiatives, because Contashua, I've looked at that, very good. Burgess, what do I look at? Average, getting better, good. That's my assessment of what I see. But you had a lot of initiatives. So the key is that those initiatives now, where you start seeing a lot of impact on it, because they were good initiatives, yes.
Yeah, no.
I was impressed with it, so, but.
I do, I think we're making progress. I think, from a state perspective, we've certainly made progress towards our targets from state MCAS figures. It's not all about MCAS, it's also about other programs and everything else we're doing, and I think folks intentionally moved to Sturbridge because of the schools, especially that elementary school. That's what we're told anyway, as they're enrolling.
That's good.
Yep.
Mr. Morrison?
I have the need for guidance from you both. I wonder if we find ourselves in an unavoidable time warp. The budget book has a figure of 23.5, and we're talking about 30.4, and I'm unclear.
Okay, well, and you're probably talking, are you talking about assessment
Yeah,
or?
the Sturbridge assessment is probably what makes it look lower.
Right, right, so
So
the
the
Sturbridge,
23,545 figure, I think it is.
all right.
Yeah, you're right.
I can help make sure you have the right figures. From Burgess, the reduced figure, and I'm not sure what's in your budget, it could be the original one. So after pulling the bus out, the Burgess figure is 14,360,650.
That's what we've got.
You got,
Great. Then for Tantascwa, the Sturbridge share of that whopping $30 million budget is $9,088,636. Have that?
Yep.
And then transportation,
Got it all.
okay,
Yeah, we're set.
94,362.
We're set.
Excellent,
Yeah, thank you.
excellent, yep.
Are you ready for a motion, Mr.
I
Chairman?
would just ask, are there any other additional questions for the finance for the superintendent? So, all yours.
I move the Finance Committee recommend to the 2026 Sturbridge Annual Town Meeting for the education budget lines 13002-53,000 and below, the sum $23,545,648.
Second.
That's LM and MCP. Okay. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor? 7-0. Great. Thank you both for taking the time to
Thank
attend.
you.
and-
Need anything else, you let us know. We look forward to seeing you. We're on the 27th again up at the high school, correct?
The 26, 27, something like that, yeah, in
27th.
April.
That's what I mean, in April.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we'll be hosting you with a backdrop of Shrek this year.
okay.
That is the musical, and that is Tech Week, so you might be navigating through a little bit of their sets.
Gotcha.
We'll see you there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
As long as I don't have to dress as donkey, I'm okay.
There you go. Well, they could always use understudies, Kevin.
Okay, moving on. Now Penny, thank you for your patience. We'll move into the CPC-related articles, starting with Article 2, which is the combination article that's reflective of Mike's point from last year, where, the article says something about appointing sums of monies, this, that, and the other thing. And this time in the article, we actually include the sums of money.
Yes. Thank you to Barbara Berry.
Oh, so we're gonna do this article by article?
Yeah. it'd be easy.
I'll make
Article 2.
Article 2, yes.
so Article 2, make a motion that we recommend town meeting approve the articles written.
I'll second that.
All right, MH, JW.
Was that approve or recommend?
Yeah, approve as recommended. Oh,
I recommend they approve the article as written. We don't approve articles, we just recommend that they do
We
so.
recommend.
Charter says so.
okay. Any other questions related to this? This is just like the normal operating stuff. All those in favor? 7-0. So Article 3,
I'll make the motion to recommend it
go ahead, Jim.
to town
Second.
meeting that they approve the article as written.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to play
And
catch up
just to
here.
verify, if something is not listed as it was last year, it has been paid off.
Yeah,
Like the OSV land acquisition and the Heinz Farm acquisition. Okay.
so I just want to make sure I got it. Jim was the first, Mike, you were the second. Okay. So approve Article 3 as written. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? 7-0. Okay. Community Preservation Gravestone Restoration, Article 4.
Seen this one before. I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Recommend.
MC seconds, okay.
I thought last year, they said this was the last year that they were gonna be doing that, but
It's going to be forever, Mike.
it's gonna be forever in my mind, and I guess we're not gonna fund it, part of the overall operation of cemetery, CPC funds are a good way to do it, but, and there may be a more cost-efficient way to do this versus keep hiring that one firm.
There's a lot of this type of work being done right now by
It's a great-
volunteers.
Yeah.
So Wally Hersey got a whole crew out there cleaning the stuff.
Yeah, and
even
that's
got
where he was
new
headed to.
chemicals
Yep.
Clean with.
Yes, some of the work is volunteer, a lot of the work is, yes.
I was gonna say, isn't that book, there's the documentation, so it's here for public access.
But some of those, that has to be professionally done. It can't just be done by volunteers.
Exactly.
I consider it a precious asset.
Okay. Article 4, then I have a first and a second. Any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed and abstaining is 7-0. Okay. All right, Article 5, Community Preservation CPA Property Creation and Preservation of Trails. No,
I have a question on that one.
go for it.
Okay. So it's described as creation and preservation of trails. Last year, we had an article for $53,000 for general trail enhancements. How is this different, and is it just, verbiage?
Can I answer that?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. So each year, the Trails Committee works together to bring forward their proposal for the next fiscal year. And this year, their proposal was for general, those, however they worded it.
Yeah.
And I have the breakdown of where that money would go to, if that's helpful. But it was just more the year before, because as they forecasted the work that they could get done that year, that's what they came up with.
Okay. Well, it was last year 53,000, and now it's 19.5, so, okay. Thank you.
It's great that we don't have to pay them to do it, because it would cost us a fortune for the amount of hours,
The
the number of
the
hours.
money that they get through volunteerism and in-kind contributions is incredible, yeah. We're very lucky that we have our Trails Committee.
Well, I'll make the motion. To recommend to town meeting that the article is written.
Okay, JW, AAW, do I have a second? Oh, Chris Terrell seconds. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? 7-0. Okay. So we've got Article 6, Community Preservation 469A Trail and Bridge Project. So it's funded from two sources. Open Space Fund for $700,000 and undesignated fund balance for $1,545,000. This is, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, the funding sources obviously are different from last year, but also, this year's total number is 111,000 higher than last year's. That just, the economy, whatever, it was 2.134 million total request, and this year it's 2.245, even though the funding sources have changed. It's 111,000 higher than it was last year in total.
Oh, God bless you.
Thank you.
I'm not sure. I know Brandon is on, from the Trails Committee, is on virtually, if he might be able to help
okay.
us with that.
Yeah.
Very specific question. It's a great question.
Was it last year?
It's up 111,000.
That was 2,134,000 last year in total, and now it's 2,245.
So, Brandon, do you have an answer as to why it went up?
I was looking the numbers over. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm getting a lot of static.
So while Brent's checking that, the other side of this, I think we should at least note in the box down below that this article did come last year and didn't get the funding level. Not to try to tank it anyway, but just to make sure that the full picture's there for folks. And one of the issues, the funding mechanism change reduces the percent vote that you need to pass this year versus last year. But another part of the concern from town meeting was just the overall cost of this. And I know it sounds like this year you're doing the same thing. We're asking for full funding, but we're hopeful we'll get the $500,000 and not need it. And it seemed like this could have gone over the edge last year if there was the proviso added in there that we'll give you the money, but you don't spend it unless you get the grant. So that we truly are only spending 1 point something million versus the full 2. So I think I'd like to see that in here. When it comes to the motion time, I'll offer something up to see how the committee feels. But I just feel that based on the feedback there with that extra piece and a slightly lower amount to account for this grant that the Trails Committee feels very confident that it can get, given their past history there, it becomes a lot easier to get past a town meeting.
Can I answer to that?
Yep.
Because we discussed that at great lengths, at 2 different options of contingency or go for the project. And the Trails Committee is very confident, and they've always been very confident when they come forward with the grants that they're looking for. I don't remember once that they said that they felt confident and didn't receive the grant, so it gives me that confidence too. Basically, we kind of listened to Barbara Berry's advice, and she said, how much do you want this project? Because if you do the contingency and something happens and you don't get that grant, then you're going back next year to say again why the town should approve this project. If you do that in the summary box, if I could add that maybe you could put in that this did pass by majority. Last year's vote was 164 to 107. So it was a majority of people that were supporting the project, but we couldn't do it without the two-thirds vote. So we listened to Barbara, and we all agreed that this is a very high priority project. We've been working on it since 2010. 3 different studies have been done. We put $220,000, I think it was, into, $220,000 for Ty and Bond to do the engineering and the study to be sure that this bridge could go in where we're suggesting it goes into, from the commercial tourist to the trails. So we want to bring it to the voters, and we want it to pass. We want to move the project forward. And even if the grant was not successfully obtained, we hope that the town will support the project.
I just want to go back to the comment you made about the grant, because I thought it was mentioned in one of our earlier meetings that the grant was applied for last year, but was turned down.
No.
So they didn't get the money.
No.
Actually, the grant was turned down last year.
Oh, so sorry. Well, that's because we didn't vote it in at town meeting, is that right?
There's a couple of reasons. One, the state was clear with us that we have been receiving a lot of grants, so there was a sense of spread the wealth as 1.2. We hadn't used all the money up from a previous grant that we couldn't get off the books because of just timing of how we had to pay it out. And the third was that they were aware of the fact that the town didn't vote for the project. So between those three items, it's sort of like how many strikes against you, and so they shared that to other communities received the money for last year, and the money was late and reduced at the same time, so it wasn't the full funds weren't available that they have on an annual basis. And so we've had long communications, and there is an expectation that was laid out that the town of Sturbridge should be confident in receiving a grant this year, but that's, obviously we can't say more than beyond that. And as a reminder, as part of this project, we're not, while we're confident in getting a grant this year, we are also going to submit for a grant next year for the same value of another $500K. So it'll be 2 years in a row where we submit for grants to try and reduce the cost of this project.
I have to apologize because I thought we didn't get the grant because we didn't approve the project. That's what I was told. And so when I said, no, we didn't not get approved, I thought it was because we never really could go because we didn't pass at town meeting. So I apologize.
It definitely doesn't help.
Yeah.
It definitely doesn't help, Penny.
Why only 500,000? Could we ask for a larger grant, or is that the max we can, per the
That's the
project?
max.
That's the max.
Go ahead, Jim. You're at-
Just an observation for us, that increases 1/2%. So
Yeah, but
compared
it's
to
still
last
like you
year.
know why it happened.
It's still,
He's looking
it's
it
still
up.
an increase.
Do you have any answer yet for the $111,000
Inflation.
increase?
We had two numbers, last year's number and this year's number in terms of costs for the project. We reverted to the higher number this year just because of the project being delayed as a cautionary tale. So we could revert back to the other number from last year if that was something that the FinCom felt was appropriate.
So this is a number that was calculated for last year's project, and you just went.
We had two numbers for the
For last
cost
year.
of the project.
But if it
Sorry, go ahead,
isn't
Kevin.
spent, it goes back into the CPA fund, it stays in there. So it doesn't-
Correct.
Yeah, but that's not my concern here. My concern now is, this is, a year later, and 0.5%, inflation has been much higher than that.
Sure it has.
So if it was 2.134 last year, it might be more like 2.6 or 2.7 this year, and we're going to end up short.
Then the project won't move forward, because we would be asking the town for the money that we are proposing. If it comes back that it's over budget, then we either have to look for private donations and do some fundraising and make it, because we can't ask, we'd have to come back to ask. We couldn't spend more of CPA funds without the approval of town meeting. And I remember now when Brandon discussed or added his input, there were Ty and Bond gave us two different scenarios, and one cost a little bit more money, and we went for the lower price, just thought we can get by with this. We don't need, I think it was the width of the bridge maybe, could have been, and Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong. And we said, you know what, we can get, let's get what we can get. And if we went wider, it would have been more expensive. We're using the more expensive number, or the higher price number, in those two proposals because it has been a year. And then by the time you get a shovel in the ground, it's been more time. So,
So, I guess.
but we didn't go back out and ask the town for like another $200,000 to have them go do another engineering to figure out what the new cost would be. Because we have enough information.
I guess the only other thing I want to make sure I clearly understand, right, is there was, in last year, if I remember when we discussed this, to build out all the trails on the other side of the river was going to be $4.5 to something like that, $1 million would give you 100% build out. And half of that number, a little more than half of that number is going into this one single project. So does this bridge have more value than trying to build out that other side in total?
I would say yes, because the bridge is what's going to allow people to shop or dine in town and then cross over the bridge and take a scenic walk, either a short walk over the boardwalk and the bridge and a little bit of the trail, or they can connect through Riverlands over the OSV easement, over to Dowdy property, now that we own Dowdy property, over to Hines property, to Lead Mine, keep going until you get to the Ed Calcutt Bridge and into Southbridge on the rail trail. So this bridge is and that's why we've been working on it since 2010 and haven't given up, and we won't give up. And that woman who stood up and said, could we have a recount? And I stood up and said, we'll get this done. We'll come back. We'll keep coming back to town meeting because this has such a valuable, this project is so valuable to our community, not just for the people who live here, but the people who visit here. And the people who visit here bring their money in and spend it here and leave it here. And then they enjoy the trails. So, but if you live here,
Yeah.
it's kind of like Deb Boyd said, you know, people are saying the reason they move to Sturbridge is the schools. That's absolutely true. The reason they stay in Sturbridge is the trails. I mean, and people really enjoy, and if anybody follows social media, you can see how many people enjoy our trails.
Yeah, I think that to add to Penny's point on that in terms of the access, as an example, has anybody been down to the River Road parking lot, the new
I'm
one?
sorry, can you speak
Yeah,
up?
get a little closer to the mic. You've gotten real quiet.
Yeah, so I tend to be loud, so it's one of those things where, so has anybody, to Penny's point, has anyone in the FinCom been down to the new parking lot on River Road?
I go by it fairly often.
Okay, so that parking lot, while we've had trail near that parking lot, the Farquhar Road section has been done or completed for a while now. We built a short section and a parking lot that connected to Hebert's, the old Hebert's building, Paul Plaza. And that opened up this past summer in July. And as of July to December, we had 6,000 people use that trail. And it's an example of access and not the trail specifically, because the length of that trail all the way to Westville has been there for, it's been there for a couple of years now, at least 2 to 3 years. But the access and the ability to access from different points, so people using that the parking lot is already too small because people see it and they pull in and go to use it. So to Penny's point, getting the bridge in place gives people the access. In terms of the pace of the trails coming in, you have trails, 2 to 3 miles of trail in there already that people will use. And yes, we want to expand and get more wheelchair and other trails like that, to give a diversity for people to use. But that is the stuff that the rest of those trails will come after. Access is the critical point when you have trails in there already, if that makes sense.
It's really the only way to get from the commercial tourist district to the trails. If you don't do that, by foot, I should say. I mean, you can get in your car and you can drive over and park somewhere. But the key idea here is to have that foot traffic from the commercial tourist district, because this will help our commercial tourist district. So then you have this exciting new trail access, and people decide, well, you know what we should do? Maybe take a ride and go to the brewery or head to Kaizen, or maybe I shouldn't name drop, but let's go for sushi, let's go for a beer, let's do some shopping, and then let's take a walk.
Yeah. We tried to substantiate that with the October. No one could substantiate that it had any increase whatsoever to do with revenue. You're working on it.
Oh, could so they could or couldn't?
Basically, Brandon, I know that I had talked to you at the Trails meeting about, if there was any way to monetize the use of the trails to, like, increased receipts to our business district. And basically, correct me if I'm wrong, but you mentioned, well, we don't have a monetary, but we know it happens because people say it does. I also talked to Terry Masterson, and asked him, as head of business development, if there was any way to do this. What he had done was he had placed some surveys at local hotels and surveys at the trailheads, just asking to try to get information about, why are people visiting, or are they from out of town, this and that. And the information was really nice. Unfortunately, the number of respondents was so low. Only 11 respondents at the hotels and 35 respondents at the trailheads, as to, to try to equate or monetize the trails with businesses. So there's nothing right now to be able to calculate how much the trails benefit, the increased receipts on the businesses. I mean, here's the word feel. We feel it does, but we don't have an exact way really to monetize that.
I will say our commercial tourist revitalization plan marked this as a high priority as a project. They didn't, again, get into the money reason, but just said that we feel it will, increase your revenue for local businesses in that area. It's also part of the Sturbridge Master Plan and the Open Space Plan, all focused and brought this project, put that in the plan as a priority that we should look at, so. And,
Yeah, I think-
even if you, and I don't think this is true at all, but if you didn't gain a nickel from the area businesses, or they didn't grow a nickel, but I do think they will, even if they didn't, the value that this has for people who live in that area, that maybe they don't have a car, maybe they bike ride or walk more often because they live on Main Street, they would have access, the seniors would have access, we would have access. We could go to the local brewery, have maybe 2 beers instead of 1, because we don't have to drive, we're going to take a walk, we're going to walk for an hour through the woods or 2 hours, or take a bike ride, and then drive home.
If I could, Kevin, if I could jump in quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think this is one of those things that's really very hard to quantify. We did put the surveys out for tourists coming in, and as Penny points out, a lot of the people that use it are also going to be local residents. And this sort of comes back to the sense of what do people in town value? So putting aside the fact that we feel there probably is some tourism that and that restaurants will benefit from outsiders coming in. You've got to remember that our meals tax and our revenues that come back from the meals tax are not just from tourists. So it's every time anybody goes in to a restaurant. So if there's a benefit, it's going to be hard to quantify, particularly if it's residents that are using it. But I also think this goes back to, what do the people of the town want? And, and hopefully on the floor of town meeting, people will see the value. But I think that people have consistently shown that they believe in CPC funding use for trail projects. And this is a significant trail project that people have been looking at for a while.
As a final data point, I talk about 5,000 unique users on a small parking lot, is brand new from last year, but also we had 70,000 people that we tracked on the properties we are tracking last year. 70,000 unique visitors. And so, yes, we're not quantifying what that turns into dollars, but I'm not saying it doesn't affect the town. And I think it would be remiss of anybody to say that 70,000 unique visitors to the trail isn't a benefit to the residents and or to the businesses in town. If you go to the Sawdust on a weekend morning, it's jammed, and there's running crews, there's people that are going out, they're meeting there, and so it comes back to access. If we have access on the Riverlands, from downtown, you will start to see other ways that the town benefits from that. And so I appreciate everyone wanting to quantify. I challenge, if we said we're going to spend a ton of money to quantify what that looked like, people would say, well, let's not spend, we're spending money now, let's build the bridge. So it becomes a balance. But 70,000 unique is a lot of people using the trail system.
So other than the increase in cost, it's the exact same plan as last year?
Correct.
did it have to be,
Okay,
I'm
sorry.
sorry, Brenda, did it have to be rebid, or was it still fresh enough? I mean,
It will still have to be bid. So this is if we get bid,
Yes.
then it will have to go to bid.
okay,
And that's was the question was, what if the price goes up? Well, if we get 3 bids back and they're all overpriced, then one, how much over is it? And can we find some private donations and get some fundraising done? Does the project die, or do you go back to town meeting and say, because we didn't get this done when we had hoped to do in 2023 and 24, we're back again? We don't know if it'll pass or not, but we're just going to keep trying.
The way the article's worded, you'll have 2.2 million to spend. If you get the bids come in, and you can do it for 2.2 million, you've got CPC funds to do that, even if you don't get a dime in grant money.
That's
You're
exactly
gonna do the whole
right.
thing out of CPC.
And if we do get the grant money, then that money will go back to
You'll
the
spend less.
CPC
If it
fund, which
costs
has just recently
2.6
happened, I should say.
million, If you get the way it's worded now, you're 2.2, and it costs you 2.6, but you get the grant money, you can still move forward because you got the 2 pots of money. You're not obligated to offset
Exactly.
the
Yes.
2.2 by any grant money.
Exactly.
So
That's a good
grant
point,
monies are in
yes.
addition, and if you don't spend the total piece, you're spending less on CPC.
okay.
Ready to make a motion?
Go for it.
I'll make the motion that the Finance Committee recommend to town meeting that they approve the article as written.
Have a second. Larry,
Second.
any further questions, comments?
Again, just to address the issue of you know, from last year is kind of tying some of that grant money to this versus the whole thing coming out of the town here. So, I'm just trying to understand why we would go with the whole thing versus kind of put a contingency on moving forward unless there's some grant money to offset some of these costs here.
And that's exactly what Barbara Berry said. You either, if you want the project, she would recommend that you don't do this contingent, you get it done and go get that grant and then go back to the townspeople and brag about the fact that you have it. That's not exactly the word she used, brag. Or you contingent upon the grant, and if you don't get that grant, something doesn't go as positive as we hope it will be, then you're back to square one. What we're saying is the majority of the people last year voted favorably for this project. It's been in the works since 2010. There's been 3 different studies on it. The town, 3 different plans in the town, at least 3, the open space, the commercial tourist revitalization plan, the master plan, all put a priority on this project. We who are in the trails know and pay attention and really look at these numbers that the Trails Committee puts together and the studies they do every year. We know that people are enjoying our trails. We know that people come from out of town and use our trails, and the people who live in town adore our trails. We know that, and what we want to do is move this project forward. We don't want to put a contingency in there. We want to say to the town, do you want this? Do you want to spend your money, your CPA funds, on this project and see it come to fruition? And that's why we didn't go with the contingency plan.
Kelly, if I could just add to that.
Sure.
Oh, Barbara's here, sorry, I know I put a little bit of words in your mouth.
It's okay, Kelly. I just want to caution you, and the discussion really was about the risk you take if you say, if we don't receive $500,000, the project doesn't go forward. So what happens if they receive $400,000? Now we've got a grant and we have no appropriation, and we would have to go back to town meeting to get the appropriation. So that was the conversation that we had, is the risk is when you make it contingent on the whole thing, and if we get a necessary amount of money, and as Brandon said earlier, last year, the money available for them to give out for grants was less than it had been the previous year. So while the Trails Committee feels very confident that they will receive grant money, there's no guarantees on the amount right now. So we always hope that we're going to get the maximum available, which is the 500. But the big question is, if that doesn't happen, then what?
Okay.
And I just
Okay,
had a
thanks.
comment. You know, the vote was pretty strong in favor of this last year. It would have passed if it was just a majority vote. And if we go ahead with this, and we recommend it, and it goes to town meeting, if people don't want it, show up and vote. Show up and vote. If you don't show up and vote, well, you get what you get. So,
And you're going to love it if you do.
But just to
It really is
verify,
special.
The funding sources is not coming out of technically an additional taxpayer
It's going to
money.
come out of Community Preservation Act
It's
funds,
the
both the
current
general
fund
and the
that is
open space
available.
funds that are available, that are already in the CPA account. That's right.
Okay, thank you.
I don't, if it doesn't pass, I wouldn't take a third bite at it, but I appreciate the discussion.
Oh, definitely. You don't need two-thirds, this is, you don't need, this way where you need two-thirds, so.
Okay.
It'll
All right,
pass.
I'm ready.
All right, yeah. I have a first and a second to approve the article as written. No more discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? Okay, 6-0 to 1.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
So I can just do that one. 6-0 to 1. Okay.
all right.
Yep. Just gotta get all the recording down. So this is the Community Preservation Affordable Housing Trust. So is the only weird question, I guess, to clarify is why such a oddball figure? Why 342,700, not 345 or?
Because Jill is overseeing the housing authority, and she is a very specific person, in the best way possible. We're very lucky, and I know you probably know she's retiring. We're going to miss her terribly. I have the breakdown if you want to know the housing coordinator, $31,300. Administrative costs, $9,400. Legal fees and filing expenses, $6,275. Housing Institute, which is a course, education, $225. Printing, $1,400. Advertising, $3,500. And funding the trust account, $300,000.
If I might just comment very briefly on this?
Sure.
So we're really pleased with the fact that we've gotten a lot of concrete programs, things completed. A lot of times communities put together housing trusts, and they have a lot of these great plans and policies, but they don't actually implement them. In this case, we've been able to implement really successfully added programs. This is really critically important because we're not quite at a 40B yet, and that opens us up for sort of unfriendly 40Bs where your local zoning becomes less important than what the developers want to do. So the fact that we've made such an effort and been so successful at it also protects the town so that we can do friendly 40B and control how housing comes in, the type of housing that we put in, and that we maintain the integrity and fabric of our community while still providing resources for people to be able to stay and live in Sturbridge.
So she built her budget bottom up as opposed to saying this housing fund in the CPC's got $342,000. So let's just move the fund balance into the
Exactly.
trust.
Exactly.
Use the group
This
effort.
is calculated on an as-need basis.
Manage it from
Right.
there.
And she comes before the CPC with a full report and details as to where they came from, what they accomplished this past year, what they're looking to do next year, what the state has approved. Very thorough and working that way as opposed to, I have this much money, what can I do with it? This is the money they need, Jean and the housing, or the Housing Trust works on it.
Robin, I would just say, while the last program where there were, I think, two households that got some assistance towards purchasing their first-time homes and part of this program, you're not going to wipe out the 40B issue by ones and twos. At some point, they're going to have to come with a slightly larger project with more units to kind of close that gap.
Understood.
That was a good.
And you will see, and I don't know if you have the breakdown that she actually presented to CPC, but Jane puts in there that we're working with developers to talk about putting
putting 20,000 per unit, so we can get multiple units. But I certainly know that we're not going to meet that number at 1 or 2 at a time. But one of the things that they will look at if you try to fight an unfriendly 40B is, are you making a concerted effort to meet the number? And I think we can clearly show that we are making a very active effort.
As I recall, Gene brought in representatives from local financial institutions who did seminars with folks on how to apply for a mortgage, for instance.
Yes.
And
Yes, and really encouraging people to learn how to navigate, even if they're not getting our funds, using some of this, using April, the part-timer that we've brought in, that from through this, to do that, to educate people on first-time home buyer and things like that. And we brought banks in, she had a full seminar, and it very, very successful.
Make motion that we recommend the town meeting approve the articles written.
Do I have a second?
second.
Jim? Any further? Mike did. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? 7-0. Let me just draw that official. All right. I think, Penny, that does it for you.
Well,
So thank you for your
very
time
much.
coming in.
Thank you so very much for asking some questions and sharing a positive, favorable vote. Thank you. I keep looking over there like somebody called my name, but did you say something, Robin? No, okay.
No, I was just thanking you.
Oh, thank you.
So, you can, for notes purposes, the version that we're using
Forget about that.
is.
It's still
It's still version 1, the filing version. We might just note that in there, version 1, in parentheses, with votes of finance committee and select board included.
Yeah, Mike and I had a discussion about that, because usually why the versions change in my mind is because articles are being added, removed, changed. In this case, it's set in stone, and all we're doing is adding votes, but that should reflect the dates of what they're doing it.
Or put a date. In my mind, it's a new version every time you change something in the document.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that.
I'll just put that as at the very bottom where
Yep.
we say documents used.
Yep.
Right, and so for the next meeting, there'll be a version 2. All right.
Call it final, and then we can, no.
All right, so now we're on to Article 58 of the special town meeting warrant, which is the library project there. I'm trying to remember the real name, what to call it here. I'm going to just bring it up.
Library outdoor program space
And accessibility.
and accessible entries, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Becky's
I
here.
believe,
Rob's
Karen, you received information from me today, and I believe that Joe Cohn may have spoken with Jim as well.
Yeah, I sent that information out to everybody.
The information, there was just one error in that, and the information, the area of that deck is approaching 1,100 square feet.
Okay.
So everyone knows that. It's
I apologize for that.
about 1,100 square feet. And what I was unclear on was when I saw that they were going to build a ramp, it didn't say that it was going to be a concrete walkway that's going to end up in a sidewalk down by the street. So it's not a ramp. I'm thinking it's going to be made out of lumber, like the
Yeah.
deck would be. It's not. It's going to be a poured concrete walkway coming down to the road.
Right.
Okay, well, that's significantly more expensive than running pressure-treated lumber down there. So I was made aware of that by Joe. And the way he described it is you come out of the basement exit, there would be a concrete slab, which would be adjacent to the wood deck. And you would use the concrete slab to access the wood deck, and then the concrete slab would transition into a ramp. Not really, a ramp is the wrong word, but a ramp that's concrete
So,
down to the roadway. That is significantly more expensive than conceptualizing all this stuff out of lumber.
but I guess what I'm saying, I still don't have the real figure for what would it cost for the 2 doors,
I don't know what the doors cost.
the concrete pad and the ramp without the deck.
So, well, without the deck, well, I think you could carve out that the deck is about 100,000 of it. Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, because I know you spoke with Joe, I did as well. I believe the deck is about $100,000. We didn't have a set number on the doors. Joe is not an interior architect, but just based on what we know from doors and handicapped accessible doors and the buttons, the access buttons, we probably are looking somewhere between 30 and 40,000. But the deck itself was about 100,000 of the cost. The ramp, the concrete ramp is about 50,000, landscaping's about 25, the doors, as I said, would be 30 or 40, and I think I put that in one of the breakdowns that I sent. So effectively, with the deck, we're looking at probably around 205,000. Prevailing wage on concrete work, concrete masonry is about $93 an hour. On carpentry is $71 an hour. And we know that the prior bid, it was a little confusing with the 197 because we had a little more sidewalk included, but we didn't have the doors included. So if you exchange those, that was at 197, it was an only bid, and I'm hoping when we rebid, we'll get better numbers. But I do think that the 240 was to just put a contingency in there so that we don't run into a problem. We've talked before, when you've talked to Heather about projects, having enough, it just comes back. I mean, it's not like we spend it.
Joe felt that could run in the 210 to 220 range. From just personal experience, the amount of concrete work there is minimal. It's laborers and a mason for 1 or 2 days to pour that concrete, and then they're gone. Most of the work is going to be carpentry work to build the deck itself. The concrete work is, carpenters build the forms, laborers come in with a mason and pour the concrete, and they're gone in 2 days. It's done. A master mason gets $90, a laborer gets about 60, and right now the carpentry rate in Massachusetts, prevailing wage, all in, with medical benefits, retirement, the whole package, is just under $80 an hour.
This is
79 and change.
No, $70.91, it's just, it's $71.
I went on the website and looked it up today.
Yeah, I had 71 on the version I had. Jim, you might have looked at another spot. I mean,
Public information on
it changes,
website for
literally.
prevailing wage. That's where I got my numbers today.
Yeah.
On the state website for prevailing wage, and I specified this area, Sturbridge. And that's what I
Yes.
came up with, 79, 80-something. And masons, yeah, about $92 if you're going to have someone who's a bricklayer, but they're just going to be rubbing concrete with trowels. So it's a different category, anyway. Done a few yards of concrete in my time.
The Neepers took a turn on the description last night. We started with, we need ADA access from the back of the library there, and whatever the number is, let's say it's $100,000. So the question is, do we do that or not? Well, we're required to have the ADA access. It costs what it costs to do it, right? We should do that. Then we throw in the doors, cost a little bit more because the doors aren't correct. We'll fix those along the way. Then there became, while we're doing this, we can get incremental space for library programs out there. So what's the incremental cost, while you're out there, to add this program space? And we can evaluate whether, we want to spend that incremental amount for a nice to have or not. But then the discussion went to, no, we have to have that extra space because we don't have ADA compliant space, and we need to have ADA compliant space out there. So,
I didn't get,
That's not what I remember.
that's not what I got either.
so did I misunderstand that?
They have,
You have to have ADA access to, if we build a deck, we have to make the exit entrance doors ADA compliant to get to the deck and to get back in.
No, to get to the meeting rooms downstairs in the library, to get ADA accessibility to it, is the need for the ramp and the expanding the doors. That's it.
But I think-
Like Mike is saying, it's,
The elevators go to the basement.
No.
Could I touch base on that,
Yes.
I think I know what you're getting at, Mike, and there was a discussion of whether or not what we do currently is accessible, put aside the access into the building, but actually the program space. and the meeting room is small, but maybe technically accessible. The problem is if we do outdoor, any type of outdoor programming, they use the common. The common is not fully accessible necessarily, and I think that's, I mean, what do you do with a common? We can't get kids across the street from the library if they're in a wheelchair. So the common itself, if you're on it or you're accessing it from somewhere else, might be accessible. But I think the concern is it's not ideal. But the bottom line is this. I'm not trying to couch anything for what it's not. Can we live without the deck? Probably, but why wouldn't we, at this point, while we're going to put this money into doing all this, put an outdoor space? We have a large amount of children's programming that happens. We can't do it well outside. We can't get kids across the street to the common safely if they have accessibility issues. And so it makes sense at this point to do this all in one project. It co-evolved. It wasn't, well, we're doing this, let's do that. It was really, as I understand it, now this had been discussed several years ago initially, but it sort of co-evolved as accessibility and program space. And Becky's here, she can address further the actual use for programming.
So my concern was going to be if we got to add the deck space because we need ADA accessible deck space for programs, it would only be seasonal. So I don't know we would be solving the problem there. I'd say at that point, let's make this $1 million endeavor and add a whole new enclosed addition, do whatever else. But if you're saying we don't need, it just makes it convenient for, instead of running those outdoor programs in the seasonal time at the common, we'll use that space. That's a different understanding on my part, and I'm okay with that.
It's a double, the common is very difficult for a person with a handicap to access from the library side. But we do have the indoor meeting room, so we are not inaccessible in the winter, I want to be clear on that. But if we want to do outdoor programming, yes, having the deck is a safer and certainly a better option for people with handicaps than having to get these kids across to the common. But is it impossible? No, but it certainly is much more user-friendly.
The way I look at it, Mike, is you can build the egress to get out of the back door and down and make it all handicapped, and you don't have to put the deck. But if you're going to have that access, and you're going to have people coming and going through that door, it has to be handicapped accessible, and you need the ramp to get down there, because a person in a wheelchair can't get down there.
I don't know if that was intended to be an alternate entrance to the library, just an emergency egress for those down
But
the
you
line.
can have the access and the ramp and all that as a standalone, but you can't have the deck as a standalone if you're going to use it, because you have to make it accessible. You're kind of creating your own.
So what are the ancillary costs related to this project? So you're getting a structure, now are we going to need, shade, all, big awnings for shade and stuff like that?
I'll add one thing that Robin probably would have gotten to, that Joe mentioned to me, and it went before the Jean Bourbon, and she said the original quote was just to throw down some grass seed and get the ground so it's covered. And Jean came back and said, no, it's got to be landscaped like the rest of the property, with all
Yes.
kinds of shrubbery and everything to blend in, and that's a considerable expense. That could be another 20 to 30 grand.
Right, and you get to part of my problem with this is this project seems like it's just been cobbled together. It didn't have a comprehensive plan from the beginning. We can do this, we can add this,
Well,
And I think that's why we've been kicking this ball
I
around
can't
for a while.
speak to how it evolved with prior staff, but I can tell you that since that time, when we realized that it had not been put together the way it needed to be put together, this is why we're coming back and we're asking for what seems like a huge jump, because we are sort of trying to now put the project together properly as opposed to the initial sort of cobbling.
Okay, but part of putting that together is the continuing operating costs of it. So.
Yep.
Yeah, so what are we talking about ancillary costs to it? Are we gonna need awnings that spawn from the side of the building to cover it so they don't have shades? Or are we what type of seating is gonna be out there, et cetera, et cetera? Is that seating gonna be brought in the evening and stored in those meeting rooms? So now you can't use the meeting rooms in the winter because all the outside stuff that's coming on the deck is being stored there. Where is that going?
So I would defer to Becky on that, but I do know that, when we talk about the Friends and the board, and I'm trying to spend their money for them, But as we know, the library does have access to some resources to buy less expensive items, furnitures, things like that. But I will defer to Becky as to what the plan might be for that. There she is.
So, yep. So as far as shade and things like that, the deck is actually underneath a tree. And one of the things that we've made sure to do is that the structure that will be there will not interfere with the tree roots. So they're putting in special pylons or whatever you want to call them, so that it doesn't hurt the tree roots there. As far as the deck itself, it will mostly be used for programming space, so it will be mostly open. There will be an opportunity to put a little bit of seating, chairs and things out there for parents that can be probably stacked up or brought inside to one of our storage rooms. But there's not going to be a whole lot of things hanging out there.
Okay, so from my personal experience though, locating a deck under a tree is not a good thing. You get problems with frass and you get problems with mold. So, I mean, that takes a lot of time and energy to clean that up every single spring to make it usable and presentable.
That's I mean, I don't know what to say about that. The whole back of the library is large trees back there.
All deciduous, I believe. I don't remember there being any pines back there.
Yeah, well, mine was under an oak tree.
Yeah.
It caused lots of problems. We ended up removing the oak tree to keep the deck.
I just want to reiterate what Robin said, and she got it completely right there, so thank you, Robin. This project did start out as, we have an ADA access problem, and so let's hurry up and figure this out. That was 2 years ago, and that's where that 110 figure came from. And when we realized we didn't take into consideration the doors, we didn't take into consideration the outdoor space that potentially needs to be ADA accessible, and how that would improve the programming as opposed, like Robin said, to having to go across the street. We did take a step back. We looked at all avenues. We looked at even including more into the project that we might get grant funding for, extending the sidewalk across down and around the corner so that the project would be eligible for additional grant money. But there was no guarantee of that, and the time that it was going to take for that to happen was just going to take too long to address the ADA issues.
I will say that is something that in the future, though, this project does not preclude us down the road from looking for complete streets to try to connect all that eventually.
So
if that's a project we want to move forward with for a complete streets grant. So we're not precluding ourselves in the future from doing it, but we just didn't want to complicate the project more at this point, and it's not needed for this portion of the project. It needs the landscaping, as Jean pointed out, what Jim mentioned, and obviously the doors and whatnot, so.
Oh, just to handle the ADA compliance doesn't need any of the rest of the project either. You can handle that with just expanding the doorways and the ramps. And the
For the
cement
doors, but yes, and theoretically, we are not non-compliant for outdoor programming, but it is not, because it's a separate area of the common, it's not the building itself, but we really don't have a place at the library where we can run any type, we have a small area up front where we can run outdoor programming, but it really is not sufficient. And if we do any kind of larger outdoor programming, the library needs to use the common, and moving from the library to the common for a disabled child is not an easy situation. But again, the bottom line is, I'm not trying to misrepresent what this is. This is very nice outdoor spacing being done as part and in conjunction with accessibility.
Well, I guess where I'm going is you can take care of the accessibility project, and all the rest of this, to getting the accessible deck space and program space, and making sure that all the plantings are done correctly, and all that could be done with a more detailed plan, with more detailed cost estimates than maybe the $150,000 you need just to get ADA compliance at this point. You could do that part with an eye to getting the rest, and then come back with real figures and a real plan. I mean, instead of just cobbling it together by estimates.
Again, I take issue with the fact that it's no longer cobbled together. I can't undo what was done in the past, but it is not cobbled together. It has been researched, and we have spent hours and hours of time with Heather. This has gone through Jean. It originally went through Jean, and that's when we found that we had things that did need to be worked on. So, again, Kevin, with all due respect, I can't keep hearing that this is cobbled. It is not cobbled. What we are doing is sort of fixing the cobbling that had happened.
Well, then why are all the numbers pure estimates? Why can't you say, we know that the doors are 40,000, or, they're giant ranges running?
Yeah, because I don't have funds right now to hire an interior architect. We've expended the funds, and I think it was paid for, most of it by the library trustees, to get the landscape architect work done. It was when we discovered after that we had a handicapped accessibility issue with the doors. I just don't have funds right now to send an interior architect out. The final design work is certainly going to be done as part of the project and with the funding. In a perfect world, would do on large-scale projects? Yes, I agree. We would go for one article for funding for design work, and once we get the design work, come back and go for another funding article for construction. Or, as you see what we've done with water sewer on multi-million-dollar projects, we have one article for design, and then a separate borrowing article for the main project, or a separate article for the main project. This is not that scale of a project, and at this point, what I would have to do if you wanted that was put an article on town meeting or find $5,000 or $8,000 or $10,000 somewhere to get detailed plans on just the doors. Our landscape architect has already fulfilled his obligation and more, because he's gone back, redesigned, and reworked with us, and that was through the trustees' money. So the reality is, yeah, can I give you an exact number on this? No. I'm not talking about a $6 million construction project. I'm talking about the fact that we have doors that I don't know an exact number within $10,000 or $15,000 of what they're going to cost. No, you're right, I don't. But given the nature of this project, we built the contingency into 240. We are hopeful it will not go up to that amount. But, I mean, short of that, I'm going to have to, do something to find money to get an interior architect to get me a price on doors, when at this point, we have stopped the cobbling, if you will. And we know now what we need.
Any
Motion one way or the other?
questions, comments, motions?
No other comments? Okay, we'll give it a shot. I'll make a motion. We recommend to town meeting that they approve the article as written.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? All those opposed? And abstaining?
No, I agree to it.
Mike, I missed what you did, I'm sorry.
I'm in favor, so it looks like it's 5-2.
No.
Those in favor?
All those in favor?
Oh, he's 5, okay, 5-2 then.
Yep.
That was MC and Kevin.
Yeah. Okay. That's Article 58.
Thank you, good night.
All right, thank you for coming. 2, and so we now go back to Article 19, which is Water and Sewer Department. Okay.
Back to ATM, right?
Yeah, back to the ATM. This is Article 19, Water Department. One thing that should be pointed out, and I pointed out to me today, and make sure, is that in the DPW budget, in the line items, I'm just looking looking for the actual. So it's on page C9. This makes the DPW salary head look like she's getting a 35% increase. And what that is the money that used to be on both of these accounts that said very specifically DPW director. So it's been moved here. And then.
I get it, yep.
Okay.
And the same thing on the sewer.
Yes, yeah, water and sewer.
So we took about $17,000 out of each one of those line items and added the 34 back into her budget.
Yes, exactly.
Plus her annual and all the other pieces. Okay, so did I hear correctly? I understand we're now kind of, instead of counting $17,000 worth of support costs, it's $100,000 in there, but did I hear someone say that the number could be as high as $400,000 should shift from the town side to the water sewer side eventually?
That's what I heard the other night. When you start to actually think about, right, mailing out the bills. So
There's a billing cost in here.
you see billing.
We don't, if I could, we haven't even, I mean, it's the tip of the iceberg in some ways. We didn't consider, for example, how many hours I spend on water sewer, just as a, for an example. We didn't consider how many hours we pay the lawyers when we have legal questions on water sewer. So just off the top, examples of those types of things. There's a lot, and it really should be treated more like an enterprise fund, we believe from the staff side.
So the billing costs that you're seeing in the water sewer budget, that is specifically for postage for our billing vendor. When they mail out our bills, the cost of printing the bills, there's costs of the software and the fees that go with it for reading meters. So those are the kind of costs that are there.
But it's not the actual,
It's not all the costs. And so, like I said, we started the exercise this year of trying to identify those things. And we will continue to work on that. But yes, the costs are much greater than the $100,000 that we put in each of the budgets.
Are you talking about the indirect costs?
Yes, that
Okay.
line item.
Okay.
Because the other night, the comment was made that each one of those should be about $400,000 in water and sewer. And like they said, they're working through identifying what those actual costs should be and adding them to it.
Yeah, but you just can't do it right in one fell swoop, because
You could.
without the 100,000, the increase would be around 3%. With the 100,000, the increase is 9%. Last year to this year.
Yeah, but again, this is part of those things, I've always argued about these things. They don't reflect the actual cost of running the operation.
I understand. So what but sometimes
So
you
they're
can't
adding
fix
it
it
in.
all in one fell swoop.
No, I'm not saying that, and so that's what
That's
we're
what I
trying
am
to do.
saying. That's what I am saying.
But they're not fixing it all in one fell swoop, because that 100,000.
I know it's not.
Okay.
What I'm saying is it only went up 100,000, it could be more.
Yeah.
But with the 100,000, the total budget there went up 9%. It went up 9%.
Okay.
And if it wasn't for that 100,000, it would have only gone up 3%, so it is a
Well,
significant
no,
jump.
you would have had to add 17,000 back.
Well,
to it.
okay.
Yeah. But still,
I understand what we're doing, and I certainly agree, you'd like to reflect the true costs, to operate those systems that are in there. But, this is gonna be painful to water and sewer users, because they're gonna see these big increases, as well as the increases coming over on the other side. And there's more money shifting in here, especially to those amounts over time, plus all the proposed expenditures that look like they're just gonna go through, because I don't see any discussion and pushback on the timing and the need and the alternatives. It's just keep bringing Tiger Bond stuff forward. We're gonna just keep spend, and go through overrides if we need it. It's gonna be a big shock to a lot of folks across the town. And it looks like we're doing it this year, and if we didn't do this, to this level. Yeah, anything over the $17,000, in each, the $34,000 in total, gives us an unbalanced budget on the other side. So we've got a signal that can't quite cover our operating expenses over here, and we're finding ways to cover it, and it's shifting dollars out of here and kind of making it look good on one side.
But we didn't hear all those, users, the 40% of the town that was benefiting for all the years we were charging them, and actually putting money into it to bring the costs down. I know that's an anti-argument, but there was an active using money to lower the costs. This is like the chicken coming home to roost at this point, unfortunately.
We should have been allocating or accruing anywhere from 5+% every year for the last 20 years. That's the average in Mass. Now we're talking about 7-8% increases. So, yeah, it wasn't. We're not talking about activity.
I know the pain. I understand the pain. I get that, and it's not a good thing. But unfortunately, it's the policies as they've been implemented over the last period of years.
We're not talking about activity. They were talking about the meeting the other night, like activity-based accounting, almost like we're going to try to apportion somebody's salary toward this, or charge the general public for what salary they might use for this. Is that what they were talking about? That's pretty daunting, isn't it? I mean, you're the finance guy, right? That's quite a complicated scenario, right? I mean,
Well, they're trying to figure out, yeah.
because then if you do that, you can't just do it for here, you gotta do it for everybody. So now, like, oh, what are you doing today? Oh, I spent 2 hours over here, I spent an hour and 15 over there, I had to, really.
I get
If I
counted
could,
every minute of my day.
Kevin, through the chair?
What was that?
If I could, through the chair, just Ken, understand that it doesn't happen for every department or for everything. Just so you understand, water and sewer can be treated more like an enterprise fund where they are separate entities, because not everybody in town is a user of that. And I realize not everybody in town is a user of schools, but schools don't fall into the same category. So, yes, we literally would have to say, on average, not did I 2 hours today spend this, but on average, how much do I spend in a year? Is it 5% of my time? Is it 2% of my time? And that is a very accepted way to look at these numbers. So it's not an unusual thing. It's done all the time with enterprise funds. So this is not unusual. It's just that it has not been done here.
But now with all the expenses, now are more urgent to do this with all the expenses, because these rates at the 7.7 and then the water, this is only the beginning. This isn't the cost of any of the new projects, is it?
No.
This is like just the beginning. This is like.
That was Mike's point. Mike's point, all this additional spending we're asking for doesn't come for another couple of years.
So, well, yeah, really, wait until.
So the
yeah.
Tigerbalm presentation was basically, what's the number, 10% a year for the next 5 years. So just for the capital projects, it doesn't include the reallocation of other indirect costs on top of that there. Yep.
Got a question, is it flatline for residential and commercial as far as the rates are concerned?
Yes.
There's no difference between commercial and
That's based on.
No,
residential?
because with water sewer, number one, we don't have a split rate in town.
Okay.
And number two, with water sewer, it's based on user fee. Well, water is based on user fee. So it wouldn't matter what the rate, you could raise the rate, but they're gonna be using that much more anyway. So they pay that much more because they're using that much more water typically in a commercial. Split rate, we don't do a split rate in town on any of our taxes, like our
I just
property tax.
I'm just making sure, because if anything, at least if the commercial uses more, restaurants and everything use more, it's a flat rate, and you should be able to, it should pay a little bit, if they pay more, it should help out. That's my thought.
Usage, so it's not flat.
Yeah.
Well, they are paying more because they use more. It's
Yeah,
a
it's not a
user
flat-
fee.
It's not a flat rate. You pay based on every 100 cubic feet that you use. We have a minimum water and sewer bill, and then anything, which is 1,000 cubic feet, and then anything over 1,000 cubic feet, you pay for. The only rate that is a flat rate is for people that just have sewer, because there's no way to gauge that, so that's a flat rate.
So if a business
question, you and I
uses
live next to
1,000
each other, and
gallons
you use
in a
twice as
time
much
frame,
water
and a
as me,
household
you pay
only
twice.
uses 100 gallons, that business is paying 10 times more.
Well, makes sense, okay.
Okay. Yeah, do we have a motion for Article 19? Yeah, pretty far.
I'll make the motion, Article 19.
Is that approve as written, so that's JW. Do I have a second?
Second.
Chris Rose. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? So 7-0. Okay. That's Water Department. Sewer Department was the same thing, right? We're basically questioning indirect costs. We'll hit the line item budget after this.
Well, I'll make the motion,
Okay.
recommend, and then we can discuss.
All right. Sewer, do I have a second to Jim's motion? Larry? Okay, what do you want to discuss? What do you got?
I don't have to discuss, I just thought people should have an opportunity.
I mean, it's basically the same point, right?
Yeah.
Big, different number.
All right then, not hearing anything. All those in favor? That's 7-0. Okay, line item budget. So we're going to try and do this just like they do, is going back to Article 8 for those at home. We're going to do this, try and do this just like the town meeting, and we'll go through, and I'll just read off the department and the number, and if you have a problem with anything in there, just say hold, and we'll go back to it, just to try and get done what isn't held. Okay? And I'm just gonna write down holds here, so I don't lose them. All right. So we have Board of Selectmen, I really should say Select Board, so I'm gonna fix that right now. Select Board at 3,600. Town Administrator at 342,167. Hold, okay. Finance Committee at 7,742. Hold, okay. Town Accountant at 135,267. Board of Assessors at 193,791. Finance Director at 427,887. Town Council, 75, huh?
I would say, does that include the contract adjustment?
Yes.
Thank you.
Town Council,
Well, I guess let's place a hold on that.
that was on Finance Director? Or Town, yeah, okay.
When we place on hold, what, you just go back over or next meeting?
No, this one.
It's all right.
Oh, okay, just, okay.
I just, that way I can vote everything else, and then we'll just go back. Information Technology at 438,511.
I'm sorry, did you do town council?
Yeah, but maybe we talked over it, but I'll say it again, Town Council at 75,000. Information Technology, 438,511. Town Clerk at 163,690. Elections and Registration at 37,130. Conservation Commission at 142,457. Town Planner at 268,262. All right, Planner. Zoning Board of Appeals at 590. Economic Development at 41,940. Facilities at 97,646.
Where is it? Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Town Hall Building, 33,770. The Center Office Building at 31,180. Senior Center Building at 22,000. Joshua Hyde Library Building, 22,650. The Safety Complex at 100,951. The Nursery School at 5,740. 8 Brookfield Road at 0. Police Department, 4,198,030. Fire department at $2,597,000, well, $2,597,597.
Hold.
Fire department, okay. Building inspector at $163,677. Sealer weights and measure at $25,000. Inspectors at $53,700. Tree warden at $39,251. I'm going to skip education because we voted that. DPW, $1,447,685. Town road maintenance, $10,000. I'm going to hold that. Snow and ice removal, $246,051. Landfill recycling center at $419,902. Board of Health, $156,159. Community Health at $5,000. Inspectors and testing at $65,969. Council on Aging, $200,694. Veteran Services, $101,900. That services, okay. Joshua Hyde Library Operations, $642,655. Recreation, $144,176. Recreation, okay. Trails Committee, $400. Historical Commission, $4,150. Debt service principal, $1,625,000. Debt service interest, $559,583. Unclassified. Okay. And then central purchasing at $450,050. And that would give us the total budget of $46,128,466. But, so I have on my whole town administrator, finance committee, finance director, planner, fire department, town road maintenance, veteran services, recreation, and the unclassified. No one else has any problems with any of the other line items. So can I just get a motion to approve all the others as read, and then we'll go back and talk.
Well, why don't you just take a motion with the final budget? Maybe there's no changes in here.
Okay. So we'll go back then to the town administrator. So, Mike, I think you had the hold there. What do we got?
A general overall question. You said that the, non-union wage scales are up 2.75%. How does that compare to some of the contractual wage increases?
So, the few people who have contracts, there are 3 people with contracts, police chief, fire chief, and now the finance director. They get a 2.75, and then they are eligible for the merit-based pay that has been historically in place, and it is up to 3% depending on performance. But their contracts, their wages and they don't have any difference in that from the town planner, who I also review, and the DPW director, who fall into that category. And they do not have contracts, those two.
I'm sorry, you said that the merit-based pay is up 3%?
It can go up to 3% for each of those employees.
Okay.
What about if I'm not one of those, directors, I'm just a regular employee, not under an agreement on a wage scale? My general wage increase is 2.75% plus a step?
Well, plus a step, so there are 12 steps. And then, yes, if they max out at step 12, then they would go up just the 2.75. But that's why I said to you going forward, because that's a long list of steps. The people who are on the merit and the union do not have a step scale.
And a union general wage increase relative to versus 2.75?
It depends on the union. I can't publicly say what we're planning. We are starting negotiations with police and DPW Fire next year was a 1.75, but again, as you know, in that time, we've also established their work week, so their hourly wage did go up, separate from that 1.75. So there's an offset there a little bit.
So I had a question.
And then there's a large increase in the merit-based pay. Is that because salaries keep going up?
That's percent, yeah. Yep, that would be
So
3%.
I've got an employee who's kind of at the top end of the scale or whatever, and the whole issue was general wage increase plus your longevity wasn't enough. Now there's this up to 3% additional pay, which also gets rolled into the base pay.
Yeah, that's been like that since before I came here, yes.
Right. I just have an overall general problem with that whole approach, but I know you're going to rework the whole process there. Okay. I'm done.
My question, Robin, on the merit-based pay incentive, it's increasing 13.4%. Has the group that's included in that incentive, has that been changed at all, or is it the same individuals?
Barbara, do we have one that may have been added because of a change?
No, so it's the same individuals, but part of that, the reason for the increase being larger than normal is last year, so as I think Robin talked about during her budget presentation, there was 2 reclassifications of positions in the Board of Health office. And the health agent's position last year, when it was reclassified, part of that wage adjustment was that he did not get a merit step last year as part of that. So now, this is the year 2, so now that merit is back in there. So that kind of skewed the number year over year because he was not included last year.
I think it would just be clear if you come up with, this person's going to get, 5.75%, and it's straightforward versus put it in this way,
But it does give me the latitude if somebody is performing marginally, let's say, not to give the full 3%.
And you can evaluate them now, and here's what you're going to get for next fiscal year, and it's
I evaluate them, yes, I do evaluate them by before June, yeah.
Gives you more leverage.
Yeah.
Do we ever not
So
go at the
I
minute?
do have the latitude to give less than 3%, and then mine is in there, and the board votes mine. So it's all based on evaluation, that merit.
I don't know if you heard the follow-up there. Has there ever been when we have not paid merit?
I got since I've been here.
So when they did that classification study several years ago, we appropriated money to reclass all the positions, do different comparables. You guys remember that? Some of you probably. As part of that classification, the grades were changed so the whole grade schedule changed. So, whatever your grade was pre-classification study, those grades were thrown out. They were readjusted based on the new classification study. And at that point in time, it was determined that they were going to put in for a certain group. So I believe it's from basically, I don't know if there's a step 1, but let's say there is. So 1 to 9 get a step in grade. So they progress, as Robin said, over 12 steps until they max out. And then if you were grade 10 or higher, they eliminated the steps for you, and they put in the merit-based pay. Ultimately, it comes out the same, other than the people that are grade step or higher, as Robin said, it's based on your performance. The other thing is, over the time that I have worked in Sturbridge, there have been so many iterations of how non-union people are given increases. And so when I go back to, probably, probably like 25 years ago, back when like Jim Malloy was the town administrator, there was merit, and then they eliminated merit, and then they changed it to something else. So it's bounced back and forth a whole bunch of times, but this was, as part of the classification study, this was what was presented, and it was presented to the Personnel Committee and to the Select Board at that time, and this is what was adopted, and so until it is changed, this is what we go by.
Yep.
All right, are we good with the TA? Okay, Finance Committee.
That's a simple question for you. Our budget's down a little bit. You got enough money to get the books printed, which is basically what we're paying for.
Yeah, I think so. There's been a different approach to last year. We tried this, and that was not having them because, well, last year they physically weren't possible to be available at the election, and they were only available at the meeting itself because, you know, it's available digitally online, but we don't get that thing of people picking it up at the voting and leaving it at home and picking up a second or a third copy when they come there, so it's reduced some of our need for copies. I mean, and there's really nothing overly controversial where I think I need to print 700 versions this year. You know, another 300, 350 should be fine. All right, so FinCom, Finance Director.
That'd be me. So I guess I'm understanding, trying to figure this out. For the department head salary, the accepted budget for FY '26 is, let's call it 153,000. Yet the number we approved at town meeting was 143.
The contract was retroactive. So-
That was last year, that would have been last year,
That
so
was a
this would
reserve
be
fund
next year's.
transfer. It's not the number that was voted there. We also have, did you reduce the reserve fund transfer by the amount of money that we moved back over here?
It's for a different year.
Yeah, this just reflects what the increase would be from the number for this current fiscal '26. The line item here would be exactly what you asked, the 2.75 and the 2.75 on top of that.
I think I know where Mike's trying to go, but I completely, as far as the accounting goes, this is how it will be reflected. It was a contract negotiation, right, in process at the beginning of the year, so her salary wasn't the number we voted there. It was going to be whatever the contract came to, and the way we funded that is with a reserve fund transfer. So this reflects the total amount she's being paid for this year.
But the accepted budget, which is what I think town meeting saw last year.
Right.
Reflect a lower number. There was a budget that got changed, and we did fund it through reserve fund transfer.
And any reserve fund transfers that you do, I try to reflect those. Or if we go back to a special town meeting and we get additional funds for something, those are reflected also.
I guess I can see where Mike's coming. So wouldn't the accepted budget be the number that was voted in the actual expended, or that's fiscal year 25, you wouldn't know what you expended in 26 yet?
Right, next year it will show the actual
Yeah.
for '26. When we produce the budget next year, it will show, but we can't put an actual in now, what we just have is what's budgeted.
But
It's the same conversation you just had about Heather. So that I had with you today, Kevin, if we don't adjust her number, it looks like she got a 35% increase in fiscal '27. It's the same thing.
Did we do that for Heather?
We're going to.
Yeah.
I talked to Kevin about it today because I
Missed it.
missed that when I was putting the budget doc together for you
Well, I guess
guys.
I'm going to argue the other point, which is, we shouldn't be adjusting those numbers. Heather's number should look like it is, so at least we're sending the signal to town meeting and they can understand it. And I realize somebody's going to question, why is that a big number? And there's a clear explanation as to what's going on. But that's the way to get across the overall message of here's what's happening in here, and here are the impacts of these changes here versus, or just the number so it doesn't look that
This is why I bring it up the budget presentation, yeah.
I mean, your agreement that, yeah, we funded through reserve fund, it sounds like you're reflecting that in here. Well, town meeting is seeing a small increase versus, there was an event that significantly changed the compensation for an employee, and you're gonna see that in a larger increase this year, and Robin and the board and the finance committee all supported that, and we can explain why that's there, but I don't think they're getting the right signal when we start changing those things around there. And if there are those big increases, and we voted for them, we should be able to stand up and firmly explain why why they're warranted and why those actions were taken.
Anyone else have an opinion on this?
It was concerning that the number changed. I mean, we did have these meetings, we voted on it, we go to town, and all of a sudden, bingo, it changed dramatically. It was like, backroom smoking cigars, that's.
And that's part of my concern also in that merit-based pay, because you're saying someone got a 2% increase. No, they didn't. They got a 5% increase. They got the merit pay, but now we're going to go back and adjust their base pay to reflect a 5% increase, but there's only going to see a 2% in there. It's a lot clearer across the board if people see, that employee got a 5% increase between the merit and the general wage increase.
Well, we read at the budget, what prevents next week, 2 weeks afterwards, we get another one, some other department says, that we gave the police chief another 15%. What prevents that from happening?
What prevents that from being smoke and mirrors, and I really take issue, again, is that this is vetted in a public board meeting, it's vetted in a public FinCom meeting, and yes, I brought it out, I brought Heather's salary out very publicly in my budget message the other night. There is no smoke and mirrors, and there is no intent to hide. Mike, I do see your point about the merit increases not showing there. I understand that, and I can respect that, and we can talk about that. But again, there's nothing being hidden here. I can't arbitrarily give the police chief a raise. The board has to vote it, and what's discussed in executive session initially, once it's agreed upon, is publicly divulged and voted in public session. So please, please do not imply that anything is smoke and mirrors. I just can't sit back on that.
Yeah, I'm not implying that's what we're trying to do. I'm just saying by looking at it that way, it could appear to be that way, yeah.
I understand, Mike. I do understand what you're saying. Again, that's why I specifically brought Heather's out in the budget discussion the other night, because people should understand where that number is and why it looks the way it does. Absolutely. And the merit question is a fair one, too. I just don't want it to appear that I can just arbitrarily, in the middle of the year, give the police chief a raise and the public never knows about it. That does not happen.
Sounds like you want to see a reconciliation of all these budget line items, right, in relation to merit and salary. Is that what you essentially want to
see? Yes. Or that accepted number should reflect the numbers that were in our, that we were.
Or sure, have a footnote and say, here's the reconciliation. This is what we showed you in the board meeting last year, or at the town meeting last year. Here's the adjustments we made and why it makes sense.
I hear you. I'm just going to say for the entire time we've been doing this, it's always been this way, where when we do transfers from the reserve fund, it looks, those numbers get added to the budget. It just has been that way.
Okay, we can move on. Let me just check something.
I hear you, though. It's a very interesting point. I didn't really fully consider it.
And yet the reserve fund, where we move monies from there up to here, still sits at $203,000 as the accepted budget. It's not like we moved that number down.
Yeah.
So if you want to do that,
then you're showing how much money actually came out of the reserve fund. Yeah.
So we're bumping some things up here, but we didn't move that.
We didn't move that money. You're right. We didn't.
All right.
Maybe that's something that.
I'm happy to have a conversation with you tomorrow, Mike, on this, but it's not the way the accounting works, and that reserve fund balance is going to reflect at the end of the year how much you actually spent in the reserve fund. And the merit, it's the process that was voted by the town, and the merit has to be budgeted in a merit item so that then it's available for the town administrator, whoever's sitting in the town administrator seat, to then be able to decide what percentage to give out. And so there's no other way to do it. The only other way to do it would be, it would have to be done well before we get to this point in time. And that hasn't been how it's been done since that reclassification. It's always been done in June, right before the new fiscal year. So, again, I don't know how to fix that. I think we've been very transparent, and this discussion has come up over and over again. I've given you guys the, a breakdown of who gets the merit, how much they get, what makes up the number. So we have that information. But when the person gets the merit, the following year, the accepted budget is going to show the merit in it, because now it's in there. Otherwise, every line item would be skewed and would have to be explained, because it doesn't reflect the true increase year over year. Because it's the money is getting moved from one line item into whether, 6, 7, 8 different line items once that merit is dispersed.
So I go back to, that was not the accepted budget by town meeting last year. It was a number, it's an adjusted number from that for things that took place versus the accepted budget. And we'll take the merit discussion, down the road if you look at some changes. I think it's a little clearer if you just say, this person earned X percent, and, the salary went from 100 to 105,000 versus 100 and 102, versus, last year we approved, it looked like it was 100 and went to 102, but we really gave them 105. So next year you come back, we're gonna set the base at 105 and make it look like they got on a 2% increase. It just looks a little off, but I'm not suggesting, I'm not going to ask for any changes if that's the way people want to present it there.
I do have one thing I'd like you to clarify, Barbara. You said the town voted on the new pay plan, the thing. They did not directly vote on it. They may have indirectly voted on the results of it, but the only people who voted on accepting it were the select board, correct?
That's what I said, the personnel
You said the
committee.
town, and it made it.
Went before the personnel committee and the select board, that's what I said. I didn't say the town.
Oh, I thought I heard the town, I'm sorry.
If I did, I didn't mean to. I think Larry was on the personnel committee when that came forward.
She thinks you were on the personnel committee when that current compensation plan went through.
The current one was several years ago. I've only been on about 4 years.
I forget who was on, Mike or somebody. Anyway, we can move on.
Okay, so the next one then is the planner, the town.
So we know that Gina's retiring, and you're still reflecting, a full-scale salary for her. When we have an opportunity, kind of like the schools, I have a senior teacher retiring, and we're going to be able to save some money in the budget by coming back here. So I realize you'd like to keep, an opportunity a lot of money in the budget to get the right candidate, but at the same time, there's an opportunity, especially given the tight budgets we have this year and shifting some other things around, to kind of reduce this salary level now to a level that's still attractive for a quality individual to come in, but maybe not needing the full amount from Jean's piece.
So, I had a full conversation with Jean about this. Jean actually thought that I needed to budget at least her salary. She was concerned that we're looking at hiring less, and she's not so sure that we're going to get somebody for less than what she made. I am hopeful that we will, and we're planning on advertising it a little bit lower, but there is going to be some overlap with Jean she's going to be here till August, so it'll be at her salary till August, and we're probably going to look to have a couple-week overlap of the new person to transition in, so that all would have to be accounted for in the salary line.
They're also.
I am looking to hire a little lower, but I don't know that I will be able to.
the budget, that budget also will have to absorb a vacation time payout.
Yep.
Which there will be, based on the timing of her retirement, and her accrual dates of, benefit time, as well as a sick leave, payback as per our personnel policies. So those numbers are in there.
It is possible, if we can hire someone at a lower rate, it is possible that actually next year, that number might drop a little bit.
And I would also make the argument that those payouts, and I have no problem with the employee getting the payouts that they're entitled to there, are post-employment related payments. So while you can keep them in the budget here, there's also an opportunity to, again, reduce the budget impact here in the operating budget and pay those from the OPEB fund. I realize we keep viewing it as $100,000 in every year, nothing coming out, but a few dollars to cover that, to give a little bit of relief in the operating budget, was another opportunity to have here. I've seen other communities do that as well. So,
OPEB is for health insurance costs for retirees, not for payouts of vacation and sick.
all right, well, I'll look into that a little bit more. Thanks.
Next, fire department.
Yeah, I appreciate the discussion on the change in shifts and the other issues in the contract there. It just seems, and I realize it's been negotiated, we should just fund this thing, but I just, in trying to reconcile, how can we recommend this as the right thing overall for taxpayers? It sounded like as part of the shift schedule, you know, if I'm over there making $25 an hour now, working whatever my shift works out.
48 hours.
48 hours a week, you know, I'm going to get a shift schedule that's down to 42, plus whatever overtime shifts I pick up, that all of a sudden I'm getting like a 14% increase in my pay just because of the change in schedule. So it looks like there's a schedule impact that provides us hopefully some better coverage on some of these other shifts. But as an employee, I got this large increase in my hourly pay.
But they're not getting an increase on their annual salary. They're working less hours for the same money. The increase that they will see on that is only on their overtime rate, because it will be based on the higher hourly. So I don't want it to appear that firefighters are getting like a 14% raise on their annual salary. They're not. So
if I'm
it's
making
a little more money for less hours,
making-
so yes, it's an hourly increase, and that will reflect on some of the overtime costs, but I just don't want people listening to say, oh, we just gave them a 14% raise.
No, they're getting more per hour, but they're working less hours, but it's the same salary, base salary.
Exactly, and that was why the 1.75 this year on their labor contract, which is kind of an unheard of number for a union contract, was, I think, fair.
Yeah.
Because they were getting, there's gonna be a significant benefit to them if they work overtime. They won't see more money in their paycheck if they don't work any overtime.
The other thing
They'll
I-
see the money in the overtime.
We just gotta watch out for the overtime, because when you add another shift, and I researched it, and we had a discussion about it, and a lot of towns are doing this, and it's not unusual, rather than 24-hour days, which I don't even know how that works, but I guess they're doing it now. They rely historically in the past on overtime. If you look at people's salaries, some of them are at $22,000 in overtime. But when you bring in another shift, you like we talked about the overtime going down, but year over year, it's really not. I brought it up with John, and he was basically saying, well, it's new, we don't know, and so, I mean, I could easily say, why 275, why not 200? Well, we could argue 75,000, 50, no one knows, but I'd say that's something we just have to be very careful, because there's no sense bringing out another shift, helping the people's quality of life, obviously the safety factor and the like, only to say now they're gonna get equally much overtime, but at a higher rate. That would defeat the purpose of what we're doing here, I think, you know? So there's two sides. One is the quality of life, the safety, and just makes a lot of sense to do it. And the other side is, as you bring these other people on, it should take the burden off needing overtime to a point. That's All I'm saying is that it's new, but that's something should be monitoring.
So I'm still missing something. If I'm sitting here pre-contract making $25 an hour, working so many hours, I get a certain paycheck.
Right.
As a result of this contract, you're saying my shifts are only going to give me 42 hours a week?
With the same salary,
Paid the same.
but the salary's the same.
So that,
Right.
so,
Whoa.
so
Well, I'm still making $25 an hour? Or you're saying I'm
No.
not making 24?
You're
I'm
making
getting-
the same amount per
I'm making
year.
$28 an
Yeah,
hour or
so that's like
something.
overtime.
Yeah.
If you start putting equal amount of overtime, you're making more money in the overtime. So the overtime has to be, hour-wise, has to dramatically drop, because either that or you'd be paying
So you
both ways.
changed the shift schedule. It's not like we added more people in there, we just changed the schedule.
No, we added, well, so we had this full discussion the other night, guys, and we had the fire chief here who can really explain the shifts better than I can. But we went from a 3-shift
Part-timers.
to a 4-shift. To do a 4-shift schedule, you theoretically need 16 full-time people. We have 14 full-time people. So in order to make up the difference, we will make and that's if we are fully staffed to 4 on every shift. We likely will not be, and we don't use overtime to fill from 3 to 4. The 4th shift, we did agree we would make every effort to keep at 4, so that at least 1 shift every cycle, we will try to have 4 on and not just 3, so that we can get both ambulances out. Now, to make that work, we have 2 slots that we don't have full-timers for. Instead of overtime, the union has agreed that we would fill those 2 slots first with part-timers. That was why we have this part-time pool. It's a lot cheaper to fill those slots with part-time employees. So it's complicated, but that's where it is. And the other thing that's happening with this cycle on the schedule is that we've eliminated something called a Kelly Day. And I explained this the other night. It's the function of that 48-hour week cycle with the 3 shifts. Every so many days, they get a day off. And that day off, we have to backfill if other people are taking vacation. And we have to backfill with that with overtime. That's being totally eliminated.
So let me try to oversimplify this. So today, I work 48 hours a week, and I make $1,000 a week. Under the new contract, I'm gonna make $1,000 a week still,
only work for
but I'm only gonna work 42 hours. And that's good across the board?
Basically, unless you're working overtime.
I agree that there's some safety issues, whatever else, it just seems like there's a very large, it's a large increase. The other question I
Well,
had,
and you'll see that reflected this year because it's a restructuring this year. That will level off to some degree.
and then the other issue you touched upon here, that the chief thought he needed about $370,000 in overtime based on the new schedule to fill these shifts.
Yep.
You've cut that by $100,000. You know, did you come up with a different way of, a model of filling the shifts and covering it? Or is this just a hopeful we can do it for $100,000 and less? Because I don't want to end up with, there's a big gap between you and what the chief who's
Well,
trying to fill his schedule
maybe a little
suggested.
both. Maybe a little both. So if you heard him the other night, he referenced a 2%. It's actually a 1.75%. The Kelly Day elimination, I think, is a factor that might help here. I think he was also presuming that we would keep more of the shifts at 4 all the time, and I'd only agreed with the union on keeping one of the shifts at 4 overtime. So that's a big difference. I will also say that typically, and I don't say this in a disparaging way, but typically our chiefs tend to put a little bit extra in overtime, and we always cut it back. We always tend to cut that number pretty significantly, and we have been okay on those years running, and we're still, in fact, in fire running ahead. The other thing is that this shift schedule tends to lead to less call-out for sick time and better vacation schedules and less cycling of that, but particularly the sick time. And anytime you reduce the number of sick days, you reduce your number of overtime.
So
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, there's a little bit of a guess, but
So with your proposed overtime amount, are we confident that we should be able to fill those vacant shifts, planned and the usual amount of unplanned ones? 100% of the time, the majority of the time, a lot of time versus a little time with the 4 people that we need, rather than, yes, end up in a position where we've only got 3 people, on a fairly regular basis, and thus only able to run ambulance, which was the situation we were trying to avoid.
Yeah, we're relatively hopeful. I should say somewhat confident, okay? I mean, I'm not going to guarantee anything, you know that. We have, and I will say there's another factor in this. We have 1 firefighter who's been out IOD, full-timer. We're hopeful that that position will be retired out and filled. Right now, that's an overtime cost we're incurring quite often. So let me just put that aside too. We have been very successful since we've implemented this so far in part-timers taking shifts. We have a great crew of part-timers and they're very eager to pick up shifts. So if they continue to do that, this system works.
Yeah, and when I was talking, interesting enough, we were more an ambulance department than a fire department. And these are rough numbers. He was saying out of 2,500 respondents, I guess, 2,200 was actually ambulances. And we actually get paid for that. Pretty good amount of money, too, for the ambulance and the like. So, yeah, for sure, you want to keep the ambulances on the road, because we're getting paid like equivalent to $2,400 to move these people around. Oh, and also they're moving from the hospitals, like he mentioned the other night. So now they have to go to Worcester, the city, rather than going to Harrington. So every time the ambulance takes off, now it's an hour deal rather than, say, a 20-minute deal. So that's going to put a stress on the system, to say the least. So overall, it seems like this discussions. He seems stressed, right, even now with this new change, for people in an organization to make sure that the services are maintained. So this wasn't a nice. This was a need, and I think it made sense from the overall point of view.
Anything else, Mike, with the fire?
I'm good.
Okay. Town road maintenance. Why the need for more money for private road maintenance? You're on mute, Robin.
We've had dramatic rain events the past few years. We have got to get a hold on some of the potholes that we have there. We need to keep those roads passable for our ambulances, police, DPW to go up and down, and the people who live on them. We do have an obligation to at least maintain the potholes. It has gotten particularly bad the past 2 or 3 years with the type of rain, particularly the type of rain events we've had. So we're trying to catch up a little bit. Plus materials, costs and whatnot.
Is it one road, all roads, is it?
No, it's multiple roads.
And this is just a material cost of doing that maintenance. The labor cost isn't covered in the regular part of the budget.
Yeah, we pretty much do all that in-house.
Okay. Vet services.
I feel like the guy keeping everybody from lunch at the speakers conference. The salary going to purchase of services, because we don't have we're purchasing the.
We are in the process of reviewing some different options. We're in the process of doing it as a purchase of service from another community by sharing an agent. We did advertise for an agent, but in order to be VA certified, they have to do 20 hours collectively, in a number of places. We have a 10-hour system. I haven't been able to find someone who can be VA certified. We're in discussions right now in different situations, but we wanted to be sure we had enough budgeted to make sure we could keep this program running as well as it needs to run. So I would like to give a better answer, but I am in some personnel discussions right now on this. But if we were to contract out, now if it turns out that we don't, and we do it back as an in-house, we'll have to do a transfer and just push some of those funds back. But I don't envision, if we do that, it may not go up quite as much.
Okay. Recreation,
Yep, that's the next one.
you're just moving money from the department head down a little bit.
No, it looks like the department head's going way up.
Oh, the department head's going up, taking out his salaries. That's right. It's an offset.
5.8%.
So you're just reducing the salary, the amount of money you have to spend on staff support, salary piece to support a higher salary for the department head?
But he didn't get any, he didn't,
No.
that's a step, that's his, step and 2.75 plus his step? That is exactly what you wanted to see. That's exactly what his raise is.
We are utilizing the revolving fund, which is where the fees for people who participate in the summer rec program, where those fees go. And so last year, and then again this year, we are evaluating the amount of money that comes in, and we're utilizing the revolving fund as it should be. And we'll probably see another adjustment next year. So again, we have a new rec director, and we're working with him to try to whatever, like I said, the costs that come in for that rec program, those costs should be used to cover the expenses. And part of those expenses are the individuals that we hire for that program. And in the past, there haven't been sufficient funds, so the town budget supplements that program. We're trying to find the perfect split so that we're able to take less of the burden off of the operating budget and use all the money that comes in for that program.
The only problem that would happen is if we, based on prior years, we always had, say, 10 lifeguards, but this year we only had enough participants to afford 8. We might have a shortfall.
No, because so one of the things that he's doing is he is evaluating, so he has a good handle on how many kids are going to be going to the rec on a daily basis, and then he is adjusting staff based on the number of kids that are participating in that day. So if you have a day of the week where less are going, then he doesn't have staff there on those days. He can give you a much better information on how he looks at that, but that is his philosophy, and that's how he's been doing it.
Okay. Anything else in recreation?
So I would it just kind of comes to light. I look at the revolving fund thing, and it's like, yeah, money in, money out, okay, that's great. But what I don't pick up out of that as someone sitting in the audience there, or even me sitting here tonight, oh, wait, we're paying somebody's salary out of this, or we're covering some other costs out of there, so.
It should be in the report here, what comes in the annual accounting revolving fund. You would think expenditures would, be reflected in there. It doesn't say salaries per se, but I mean.
It says how much expense went up, but we don't say what it's for, so you don't get a full sense of, this recreation staff costs $4,000 more than we're showing here because we're taking money out of there to cover it, so. But that's not something I need to go through in more detail tonight, so. I understand the change, so thanks for the explanation.
Unclassified.
It was just gonna be, given the health insurance thing, trying to get a better handle on what the programs are, what changes you can make in there, even if they're optional for a higher deductible. Do you pay people, give them a stipend not to take the health coverage, just making sure you've explored everything you can to control those costs. I know you're working on it, unless I don't want to hear it, you don't have to go into any details.
Yeah, Barbara and I met today, in fact, with our health representative from Maya. As you know, we've shopped health insurance. We've had some success with keeping the price down with that. Unfortunately, some of our usage numbers are high, so that we came in high. We did propose a bit of a plan design change last year. We have to impact bargain that. I think we had people who didn't quite understand it, and it was very hard because we had the leadership there who brought it back, had to bring it back to the body and explain it, and it depends on their own perspective on it. And so I did ask a question at a healthcare symposium that I was at a few months back, as to whether or not it's a labor violation for me to address the labor unions directly, the body, to request to speak to the body directly and explain these plan changes that we could do. We talked about a plan design change that's a very small deductible, but it actually is about a break even at worst for the member if they do it. It lowers our percentage like 4.7%. They have a deductible, but the deductible is relatively low, and then after that, it offsets. They have free copays on no copay on lab and x-rays. So it's it's a good plan. It's still a really good plan, but I am this time looking, hopefully in the next month or two, as I said, we had this discussion today, to sort of go on a tour and hit all of our unions, the 3 school unions and our own unions. We did have one union right away on the municipal side last year that was for it, so I'm hopeful that with a better explanation and a little more time, we can get our employees to understand the savings across the board to everybody, without, at worst, little to no financial impact on them, and if nothing, probably an improved situation.
And certainly by offering a higher deductible plan, you can save some costs on our end as employees, like you're exposing to more costs. There are ways to maybe cover some of that, just to ease people into the plan and so forth. So it's a big problem across the board, not just from municipalities, but hopefully we're not just, here's the plan and there's no other options being explored, so. I'm good with where we are.
Those drugs are being used.
Okay, any other questions on the unclassified budget?
They don't anymore, they took.
So then, can I get a motion then to approve Article 8 as written?
We didn't put a hold on central purchasing?
No. Do you want to now?
I don't want to now.
Central purchasing, we have a hold on it.
I'll make a motion to approve Article 8.
Jim is a first, do I have a second?
Second.
MCP. All right, any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, 6-1-0. All right, beautiful. All right, so that gets us through everything that is on tonight's agenda as far as warrant articles. Whoops, I can't type. All right, so where is my agenda? I'm going to skip meeting minutes because we still don't, we have the February 17th one, but the other 2 are still in progress. So we'll let those go. All right, new business. People have any new things they'd like to bring up, discuss, highlight to the committee, educate the committee on, et cetera, et cetera.
That's a lead-in, right?
Yep.
So I'm just going to share some stuff I use behind the scenes, and it kind of comes from,
Thank you.
we sit here, and how much did we spend on that last year, Barbara? How much did we do here? We tend to just focus on.
Thank you.
Let's look at each line item, look at cost $45 million and so forth. So I keep thinking at some point, I've seen some other communities come up with like key financial indicators, and the finance committee kind of tracks and looks at those. And what would those be over here? I know we have a lot of discussions about stabilization funds. I was asking Barbara for questions in there. So on my end, I gotta remember to thumb through my sheets or whatever, but I just reformat this data over time. So I was sharing this with Kevin and suggested that maybe off-cycle, if people have an interest in it, to figure out, what are the types of things we as a committee should be tracking, not only because to track history and focus on some key events like revenue sources, where are the key ones, and are they increasing, decreasing, or whatever. What are those things we should be focusing on at a macro level? I also think there's some things here like the stabilization fund things that I plot out there for myself. How much should we put in one year? How much should we take out and why? And what are the fund balances, so that even if there's new members, they can at least, if we track it as a group, not always relying on, Bug and Barbara and Robin to come up with a number on the fly here, but, some of the history could help some of the new members as well. So I'm just sharing the stuff. The other part is the cover sheet here is everything in the warrant for this year. So we keep talking about a $40-something million budget. But I break this down for myself, how much we're raising and appropriating, how much we're using from free cash, how much from CPC, what are the funding sources across the board? At the end of the day, we're really looking at $62 million worth of expenditures, excluding what runs through those reserve funds in there. So it's more than a $42 million town budget we're looking at here. So, and this kind of helps me, if you look at the second sheet, even though the print is small, you know, kind of what's the history, you know, more at a glance, so.
This is awesome.
This is great.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to put this together?
Huh?
How long did it take you to put this together?
I don't know, 10 years?
Your whole life, right?
I've got a stack of old books, you know, from years and years, and I just put them in there and tweak them every time I'm sitting around board and got a little extra time to make sure I've got the numbers, so.
The only question I have, Mike, I just happened to think of this, is these stabilization funds, right? So the interest that are earned on those funds go to the balance, but aren't reflected anywhere. You count, do you get that in here?
So the way I have that, in Barbara, so I'll leave this, a copy of this in your box, so you know what I'm sharing here. The way I set that up is, how much money did we put in? The round 100,000, whatever it is, how much did we take out of anything that year? And then Barbara always, in those boxes, when we're putting something in, says, you know, if you agree with this number, here's the total. So if you look at the balance, last year was $1.2 million, and we put 100 grand in, and the balance at the end of the year is more than 100 grand extra, it's because of the interest. And I don't know that I necessarily want to go through and bug Barbara for how much interest we earned each year. That would be the difference. And if this were, you know, a formal thing we'd use, I might clean up, you know, put a little note in there that says, you know, includes interest accrued as well.
No, I think this is great.
This is fabulous.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, everyone's gonna take some time to digest it, but overall, I just tell them, like, this is really good, useful information. It took some time to put it all together. So I appreciate your efforts for that.
So just, again, we should figure out, this is a good off-cycle discussion of what are the key things we should be focusing on from a higher level, and people feel it's some additional stuff is useful, we can assemble it and go from there.
I got it.
I would put key metrics down here, is new business.
Didn't forget you.
They gave it to me every time I go to one of those meetings. And then, the one thing I want to consider, and maybe, we won't take it up tonight, but I want you to think about it in the back of your head, and where the different places are, is us proposing at the next special town meeting. Obviously, this one we can't do much with, because they closed the warrants on us, but moving the town meeting dates back to June.
And you want to check whether we could do that, so that prompted me, because you got this nice book.
Yeah.
Robin, I would ask if you, I don't know who stuck the charter in the back of the book here, but I think it's the old charter, because as I was looking at it, it still had the town meeting in June and not April, so it may not have been updated to the current charter.
Okay.
And based on that, I thought it said, stuff to do with the makeup of town meeting requires a charter review committee, not just a warrant article.
Well, we will be convening a new charter review committee anyway this year, so, but then, you know, I don't know if you want to wait till that happens, but yeah, I need to make sure I have the right version where it needs to be. But, you know, we can, I'm looking to see where you're referencing that you have, which one do you have that's the wrong one?
I'd have to look at it, because I was under the impression that, it didn't need to come from a charter review committee, but, you know, we'd have to be more detailed.
I don't know if it has to come from a charter review committee, but we are putting one together. Now, the thing is, that may take longer. The charter review committee is going to look at more than just town meeting. So, as Mr. Morrison knows, they sometimes go, into a year or 2 years worth of work. But if you wanted to move it sooner, the question is, can we put it out as a referendum?
Well, we just heard the superintendent of schools today just say they get better numbers come June than what they're working with now.
We absolutely, I can tell you myself, and I know Barbara, I can't speak for Barbara, but I probably can speak for her on this one. We would love to see it go back to June. Even, little things like we talk about the merit bonuses and stuff. I really need to wait until a little later in the year. I mean, now granted, our budget starts getting done in March, let's say, for a June town meeting. But I have a better sense of things. We can't get prices on capital things because nobody's going to commit in October to a price for July, but we have a better shot of them committing after the first of the year, the calendar year. So I would love to see it go back to June.
I think we all agree. What I would say is, even though I don't think this is the current one, this one says amendments to this charter relating in any way to the composition of the town meeting or the composition or mode of election or terms of office of the select board may be proposed only by a charter commission. Other things can go by town meeting vote and then whatever else. So I assume the composition of the town meeting includes the date on which it's held. But if you can find another way, I'm okay with that.
Composition actually refers to is it a representative town meeting, which is sort of like a Congress.
Yeah.
And the town is divvied up and people sit together in the town meeting. They are the only ones who can vote. Everybody else can speak, but that's what's referred to as an RTM, representative town meeting.
Would composition also be, I'm just curious here, about what qualifies as a town meeting? Because technically for us, all you have to have is the moderator and the town clerk there, and we have a quorum.
Yeah, I think that's a state legislation.
Or at state legislation,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That's the case,
that's a good
we did that, we
interpretation,
utilized that
so-
during COVID. We utilized that during COVID to open a town meeting, and we had just the moderator and the clerk show up to open it, and they were actually able to do that because of that state legislation.
And then the only other thing that everyone, I don't know if everyone looked at it yet, but, over the last couple of years in the capital talks and what we've said to people at the town meeting about, we brought forward purchases of large vehicles because there's you place the order now and you won't see it for 2-3 years. And I had asked Barbara to help me get some of that information. I just sent it out, so, basically in the big purchase, police, fire, DPW, and I sent that information out today, just so you're aware that some of those were filled rather quickly, within 6 months. Some were still waiting 2 years later, and we still haven't seen it, and there's still 6 months to go. So, it just that, that wasn't an argument just without merit to it. So I just trying to put some, if anyone had ever asked, well, we were getting them normally. No, we haven't.
Oh, okay.
We still have 2 ambulance orders outstanding. And I think one goes back to 24 and the other one's 25. There's a little story behind that one, but they're still outstanding. So anyways, that information is there for you to look at too.
Excellent.
I got a couple questions. At the meeting the other night, the interest we get from reserve funds, what do we do with that?
The interest from the reserve, there is no interest on the reserve fund.
From the investments, I guess.
You're talking stabilization funds.
Yeah.
That goes right back into the stabilization fund itself.
It goes into the stabilization okay, I just want to make sure of that. Okay, good deal.
And interest on general funds become free cash.
Free cash, right. But each stabilization fund, the money stays within it.
But it goes into free, okay. Another thing, I saw the thing on free cash, that came out, and there's no question about free cash. The question that I have is basically, the policy. I saw the policy that we have. And the question is not the policy, the question is following the policy. So if you look at Division of Local Services, they say financial operation policies promote accountability, obviously pretty good. Then it says Moody's and Standard & Poor's look favorably upon the present strong formalized policy when determining community's bond rating, and it could have significant impact on borrowing. So it's nice to have a policy. If you don't follow it and we get audited, we'll get dinged on it. So when we say 7.5%, we decided not to do 7.5%. It's not part of the policy. They don't like that, okay? Because you're not managing the operations or the town with it. Secondly, if they use free cash for primarily projects, one-off projects, and you look at it and you use it into your operating funds, which we are using it, that's also not looked favorable by the rating agencies, because they're looking and saying, you're not operating within the means, and it's unsustainable. So it's nice to have a policy, and we're all concerned about Standard & Poor's and our rating systems, but realize when we don't follow it, if we have got audited and they saw what we have and what we do, it could be a problem.
We get audited every year, right?
We get audited every year, but the rating agencies
I don't know.
come in all time to time. But I would
I'm
say
sorry,
it's-
I need to speak up on this, okay? Our policies do not say, which I said this the other night, our policies of 5 to 7.5% for free cash, 5 to 7.5% for stabilization, combined 10 to 15%. If you look at the policy, it says minimum. We do not get dinged, or whatever word you just used,
Yeah, dinged is
because we
good.
have more money in reserves. Those policies are to set guidelines that we can adhere to.
Right.
So we would never put a policy in place, or as long as I'm your finance director, I would never recommend that you put a policy in place that says, we want our free cash balance every year to be at 20% minimum. And then, as I discussed the other night, as we get into situations that, not just Sturbridge, but every city in town, or most of the cities and towns, I mean, just pick up the paper and see all the towns that are going for Proposition 2.5 overrides this year. When times get tough, those numbers drop. So our policies have a good range, 5 to 10%. We will not go lower. Our policy says we will not go lower than 5%. It doesn't say we won't go higher than 7.5%. It talks about minimum, okay? So we're not gonna get in trouble for having more. We're not gonna get dinged when we get an audit. We get an audit every single year. It just, it's starting to become frustrating to me that, Sturbridge is very well run, and we are very lucky to be in the situation that we are in. We are enviable to a lot of communities. We have survived, the 2008 economic downturn. We have survived COVID. We are surviving
2011 tornado.
unprecedented times where our budgets can only go up 2.5% under Proposition 2.5, where our new growth in town is not at high levels like we are at. We're pretty much at build out. Yes, there is more build out that can happen, but it's not, the build out that the town saw a lot of years ago. So, we're doing really well. The issue that is happening is any excess money that we had, and I write about this in the budget report, and I hope you all will read it, and I hope you will go and read that. I gave you a link to an article that MMA put out regarding, navigating the fiscal storm. It's really important that everyone take a look at that, because these are real things. And, a 14% increase in health insurance this year, there's towns that are receiving, up to 35% increases in health insurance. Those type of increases are insurmountable. And so at some point, something's going to break, right? But also, we are not using free cash for operating costs. So our budget is our operating costs. When we're using free cash, and I don't know what particular item that you're talking about, but if it's the stormwater, that is a mandate that came down, that, it's an unfunded mandate. And so we're lucky to have free cash where we can, use $100,000 a year to do that. If we didn't have free cash, which a lot of communities don't, we'd still be mandated to do all the things under the Stormwater Management Act, and we'd have to cut something else in the operational budget to be able to put that $100,000 in. Now, again, that's a discussion that we can have at a later time, but there's a lot of steps that we've taken over the years. We took steps to put computers and different things that were IT related into the operating budget as operating capital. We made a conservative step, I don't know how many years ago, but Mike just analyzed everything. So maybe you can tell us, Mike, when we started funding the cruisers as operating capital. But that was another thing that we proactively did. Now, unfortunately, we're at a time now where we've had to pull that out. Hopefully, we can get back to the point where we put it back in. And we're going to try really hard. And if we have to do it incrementally, like, like Robin did this year, then that's what we'll do. But, I just feel that, and Ken, I would love to talk to you, off a meeting, but, it's just not true. Like, the things that we're not violating our policies, we're aligned with our policies. And, if any of you have any concerns that we're not, I would love the opportunity to talk to you. Obviously, when I'm at a meeting at, 10:20 at night, I don't have all the
Can I make a
documentation
suggestion?
that I need with me. But please, ask the questions to me, come to my office, call me, and I will make time for you so that I can answer all your questions.
That's fair.
What were you gonna say, Chris?
See, maybe we'd send Mike the last 5 years of audit reports that you can review. Maybe that would help.
That would definitely help.
Sorry.
Ken?
Kim?
Go ahead.
Just 2 points. One is that every syllable Barbara just expressed is approximately an octillion% correct. Number 2, if your concern held water, then why did Standard & Poor's screw up and give us such a good bond rating?
I wasn't,
Quod
all I'm saying, it
demonstrant.
could happen, I'm not saying it will. If you say 5 to 7.5 and it's above, if you say one-time items and it's used for regular operating, it could. That's all, it could, and we're all very concerned about it. So
Can I
all
just,
I'm
can I
saying
just
is,
add?
be aware, that's
Can I
all.
just, can I just add something?
Thank you.
Wait.
Oh, you're a big one.
Now,
Go ahead, Robin.
when you're looking at rating agencies, all rating agencies want to see is how much money you have. If we went for an override, we see that as like this financial failure, if you will, because we never want to do that. But rating agencies, if you get an override and you bring in more tax revenue, they see that as a good thing. So anytime you have more, as Barbara pointed out, that's where our fiscal policies say a minimum of, not a maximum.
Right.
We don't want to have too much because we don't feel it's right to hold taxpayer money as a philosophy. But I can tell you, to Larry's point about Standard & Poor's, we met with them, and we're pretty much as high as we can go, and they've made it clear that the WISTA retirement system is the only thing that holds us back from going up even a notch higher. But don't be misled by the fact that, if you taxed more or you went for an override, they'd look at us and say we mismanaged. They would actually like that. And that's an actual fact. They have no problem with tax increases. So it's a lot more complicated than, they're going to look at a number. And I do want to point out, we are audited every year, and we have had, since I've been there, I believe all unqualified audits, which is a sign that you had nothing that blipped to the rating, to the auditors. And that's sort of a whole separate entity of what we do compared to what the rating agencies, obviously the rating agencies want to see that you have good audits. But we're not getting dinged on anything because there is absolutely no mismanagement of funds. And I agree. I mean, Barbara does a phenomenal job watching all of that, like a watchdog.
Well, we do have open things, but
That's fair.
Mr. Chairman,
we're gonna adjourn.
So Kevin, would you,
as you know, a motion to adjourn is always in order.
Right.
I move we adjourn.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, no, that's,
10:24, Larry.
that's what we were just discussing.
Second.
There we go. So all those in favor of adjournment? 7-0. There we go. That was LMMH